Imagine living inside your worst nightmare. A nightmare you can never wake up from because it's real. A place where escape is impossible, no matter how hard you try. No matter which way you go, you always end up right back in town. But that's not even the worst part. The real horror begins at night. Because we all know, nightmares don't happen during the day. They come alive in the darkness. A town shrouded in mystery, where every answer only leads to deeper questions. To unravel any of them, we must go back to the very beginning. The story begins with Sheriff Boyd ringing his bell throughout the town, alerting the townspeople to head inside their homes. As he walks by a girl named Megan, he tells her to go inside immediately. Meanwhile, at the town's hospital, Sheriff's Deputy Kenny visits his father, who suffers from dementia. Nurse Christy walks him out and reminds him to get home before dark. Boyd and Kenny always make sure everyone is safely inside before heading to their own homes. As Boyd enters the police station, we see a sign outside that reads, 96 nights without incident. At the bar, bartender Tom struggles to wake up his drunk customer Frank. Eventually he gives up, locks the door, and ensures the talisman on the wall is secure. Talismans are mysterious rocks inscribed with rune-like symbols that can repel the night creatures. But talismans only work when they are on the wall. If they fall down, they're just normal rocks. On the other side of town, Frank's wife and daughter nervously wait for him. But as night falls, they head inside and lock the door. And then, as darkness takes over, the nightmare begins. Poor Megan kneels, praying for her father's safety, when suddenly, a knock echoes against the window. A soft voice calls out, "Megan, come to the window. It's Grandma." As she reaches for the curtain, her mother's voice, trembling with fear, asks her what is she doing. Grandma's pleads to be let in while her mother begs her not to open the window. As the poor child opens the window, a blood-curdling scream tears through the suffocating dark. The next morning, Frank finally wakes up and heads home, confused by the unusually large crowd gathered in front of his house. Suddenly, Sheriff Boyd storms out of nowhere and strikes him across the face. "You have kids! You nail your damn windows shut!" Boyd growls. Before Frank can react, Boyd grabs him by the arm and drags him inside. The moment he steps through the doorway, the air turns heavy, thick with the stench of blood. Then he sees it, his wife, his daughter, shredded into a grotesque collage of flesh and bone, their remains scattered across the room like discarded meat. The walls are painted in deep, glistening red. The sight is beyond horror. Boyd doesn't offer comfort. Instead, he coldly orders Kenny to lock him up. He then tells Father Kotri that they're all his now. Somewhere else, Jim and Tabitha are going on a family trip with their 2 children, Ethan and his sister Julie. Julie plays with her brother's toys and pretends that one of them gets killed by a monster. Ethan gets really upset, so his mother has to intervene and tells him that monsters are not real. Later, they come across a fallen tree, making their road impassable. And suddenly, crows start appearing out of nowhere. The family quickly heads inside to find a different path. Back in town, Boyd meets with Donna, the Colony House leader, and asks her to take him to see his son. Colony House has a lot of residents and is a little bit away from town. Boyd approaches his son, Ellis, and gives a hug to his girlfriend, Fatima. Boyd and his son are currently not on good terms, and the reason behind it will be revealed later. Boyd only came to ask Ellis to attend the funeral, but Ellis just ignores him. Later at the funeral, as Father Kotri is delivering a funeral sermon, everyone is shocked to see the RV appearing out of nowhere. Boyd tells everyone to leave these people be, and to remember how it was for them on their first day here. Jim then asks Sheriff Boyd where the highway is, and Boyd breaks down a little when he sees that there are 2 children in the RV, but he tells Jim to follow the road to the highway. Jim gets back into the RV and follows the road, but somehow he ends up back in the same place. He asks a girl named Sarah for directions, but she just ignores him. Sarah's brother, Nathan, comments about the new people driving around in circles. She sighs and says, "That's the worst part, when you still expect to find a road that takes you home." Jim keeps driving and driving, even trying to turn around. But no matter what he does, he always ends up back in town. He grows nervous, his grip tightening on the wheel, and he speeds up. Then out of nowhere, another car appears in front of him. There's no time to react. The RV smashes into the forest. Jim gets trapped by a tree. Tabitha is unconscious. Julie is fine, while Ethan has a pierced metal rod through his leg. Meanwhile, a man steps out of his car and starts walking toward town. Boyd and Kenny are placing spikes for the RV when the man approaches them and tells them about the accident. Boyd rushes to the scene, while Kenny goes for Christy. Boyd encounters a man named Jade. Jade starts commenting on how beautiful Boyd is. Boyd quickly realizes that Jade is on drugs, so he handcuffs him to the car. Help arrives quickly, and they manage to get Julie and Tabitha out. Christy tells Boyd that she needs at least 1 hour to get the metal out of Ethan's thigh. but they only have 40 minutes of daylight left. Boyd suggests trying talismans on the vehicle. They know it works on houses, but they've never tried it on a vehicle. When Jim gets out, Boyd begs him to go back to town, assuring him that they'll take care of Ethan. Boyd desperately tries to explain that they can't be here when night falls, so the group takes Julie and Tabitha to town, while Boyd, Christy, and Jim stay with Ethan. Meanwhile at the hospital, man from the car wakes up, and Sarah approaches to him, saying that none of this is his fault, then stabs him in the chin with the knife. Boyd hangs a talisman on the RV, and Jim probably thinks he's crazy. Unfortunately, the group has forgotten about the spikes they placed earlier. Kenny explains that they have to run as fast as possible. Meanwhile, Boyd starts seeing something moving in the woods, completely surrounding the RV. They start asking if everyone is okay inside, and Jim wants to open the door, but Boyd stops him at all costs. Back in town, everyone is desperately running toward the house, and Jade falls, hitting his head on the stone. They pick him up and somehow manage to get him to the house. Inside Colony House, Fatima tells them to open the door, but it's against the rules. As everyone outside begs them to open the door, the night creatures emerge from darkness, their twisted forms gliding forward with silent, deliberate steps. One of them asks, "Julie, don't you recognize me?" Kenny shoots him, but the monster doesn't even flinch. Donna comes down and tells them to open the door immediately. They all rush inside. Once inside, Donna explains everything they know about the town to Tabitha. She doesn't believe her at first, but Donna patiently explains no one does on their first night. Meanwhile, Fatima does the same with Julie, but instead of talking, she shows her a beautiful view. "When you climb high enough," she says, "even the nightmare looks like a dream." Back at the RV, they have managed to pull the metal rod out of Ethan's leg. He cries a little but takes it like a man. Back at the hospital, Sarah is talking with someone, saying that she can't do this anymore. Suddenly, she takes a sharp blade and approaches the man in the bed. The scene shifts to a man named Victor. He has been here the longest, trapped by the town since he was only 10 years old. He might be looking creepy, but he just knows a lot about this place. At the same time, Kenny confesses to Father Kotri, expressing his worries about his sick father. One night, the monsters told his father they were his friends, and he tried to open the door. Since then, he has had to stay locked in the hospital. Meanwhile, Sarah cries in the bathroom. Her brother is really worried about her, and she tells him that she didn't have a choice. Then she cries on his arm while he looks at her bloody clothes. At the same time, in the hospital, Kenny's father tells the nurse that he is scared, saying this place is a nightmare. She puts him to sleep and goes to check on other patient, but then she witnesses true horror. And, very, very sadly, Sarah has left the doors open. Back at the RV, Jim takes off the talisman to inspect it, and then one of them enters through the ceiling. Luckily, it was just Christy's nightmare. In reality, it's already morning, and everyone has arrived. Tabitha is overjoyed to see her son and husband alive and well. When they arrive at the hospital, they find the nurse dead on the floor. Father Kotri begs Kenny to let him go first, but Kenny doesn't listen. It's a very sad moment when he sees his father shredded to pieces. He storms into the forest to blow off steam, believing his father opened the door. Boyd tries to calm him down, but Kenny tells him, "Those things, they walk, they never run, because they know there are only so many places we can go." Meanwhile, Julie tries to cheer up Ethan, but he is distracted by the boy in white standing outside. The next day, Boyd checks on Frank in his cell, informing him of his fate. Back at Colony House, Donna struggles to explain the town and the monsters to Jade. He starts laughing, convinced that his friend has paid everyone to stage an elaborate game, like an escape room, believing it's all part of a reality show. Casually, he takes a woman's bicycle and rides off to look for clues. He arrives at the diner and completely ignores everyone waiting, assuming they all work for him. Meanwhile, the Matthews family looks around the only available house, the same one where poor Megan died with her mother. Tabitha freaks out a bit, but Jim manages to calm her down. Back to Victor. He is measuring to see if the trees are moving. Ethan wants to help him and tells him about the boy in white. And Victor's expressions and curiosity shows us that he knows about a boy in white. Later, Victor discovers that the trees did actually move. He believes the forest is expanding, and the town is making sure their moves on the chessboard grow smaller and smaller. Meanwhile, Jade, while searching for clues in his escape room, enters a nearby basement, where he is terrified by the sight of a man crushed by a giant boulder, screaming at him. He then notices a symbol on the ceiling. However, he remains convinced that it's just a visual effect, and that all of this is merely part of the game. At the ceremony where families must decide whether they'll live in town or at Colony House, everyone chooses the town, except Julie, who chooses Colony House. This really upsets Jim and Tabitha, but there is nothing they can really do about it. Jade, still convinced it's all just a game, causes a scene. Kenny then takes him to his friend's grave. Now Jade's eyes are wide open. Later that night, the time comes for Frank's punishment, a consequence of his reckless behavior that led to the massacre of his own family. His sentence: a night locked in the box. No talisman, no protection, just him, his thoughts, and the creatures of the night, free to do with him as they please. They tear through the box and through Frank. The next morning at the diner, Victor draws a picture of the boy in white, and Ethan confirms that it's the same boy he saw. A flashback takes us to a young Victor, standing among the corpses of the town's former residents as he follows the boy in white. Jim suspects Victor is some kind of pervert and threatens him, warning him never to go near his son again. Back at Colony House, Julie begins to have regrets, but she soon finds a good friend in Fatima and changes her mind. Later, Tabitha visits Colony House, and she and Julie get into an argument. Julie reveals that she knows about their divorce and that this trip was supposed to be their last as a family. We also learn that Jim and Tabitha once had another child. His name was Thomas, but he died as a baby, and ever since then, the family has drifted apart. When Tabitha returns home, she gets into another argument with Jim, both of them completely unaware that Victor is sneaking Ethan out the back door. He takes him into the woods to search for the boy in white. Victor shows Ethan a very special tree known as the Faraway Tree. It can teleport anything to a random place, but it's not exactly safe to enter because you never know where you'll end up. Jim and Tabitha soon realize that Ethan is missing. They notice his crutch on the ground and rush off into the woods, where they find themselves surrounded by a pack of wild dogs. Gunshot scares them off, and it turns out to be Victor. Tabitha quickly takes Ethan. Jim threatens Victor a little, but soon gives up since Victor is the one holding the gun. Later, they meet with Sheriff Boyd at the diner, wanting to learn more about each other. Sarah approaches them sweetly and gently, serving them with kindness. But soon she starts hearing voices in her head, telling her to kill Ethan. She then begins having a seizure and has to spend the night in the hospital. Her worried brother rushes to see her, but she tells Christy to tell him that she's sleeping. In the meantime, Jim and his family, determined to figure things out, start writing questions on the wall. They also learn that chickens and other animals magically appear at the edge of town. Additionally, they discover that none of the electrical equipment has wiring, yet somehow they still have electricity. Meanwhile, Victor digs 6 graves in front of Colony House. When Donna tells him to stop scaring people, he simply replies that he just wants to get ahead this time. At the same time, Kenny shows Jade that the town has no fixed physical location. Every single pin, all across the country, marks where people from this town were driving when they got here. Suddenly, the radio emits static. Kenny says the radio does that sometimes. Jade, sensing something important, steals it and runs off. Later that night, at the hospital, Sarah asks Christy, "Would you do one bad thing if it meant the whole town could go home?" Christy, still longing to be reunited with her fiancé, hesitates before admitting, "If it allowed everyone to go home, I would do it." The next morning, Sarah goes to the Matthews house, wanting to take Ethan to see the animals at the farm. Tabitha agrees, but only if she comes along. Meanwhile, Sarah's brother, feeling guilty, confesses to Father Khatri what his sister has done. As he searches for her, he learns that she has gone to the farm with Ethan. At the farm, Sarah manages to trick and trap Tabitha. She takes a scalpel and approaches Ethan, but luckily, her brother arrives just in time. In the struggle for the knife, Sarah accidentally slices his throat. Ethan runs off and is later found by Julie. Father Khatri reaches the farm, only to discover Sarah standing over her dead brother. When the rest of the town arrives, Father Khatri tells everyone that Sarah escaped into the woods. Boyd assures Jim that if she returns by night, she'll be handled. And if she doesn't, it's already handled. But in reality, Sarah is locked up in Father Khatri's basement. He tells her that her brother confessed everything to him, including the voices she hears. He explains that the modern Bible is composed of 73 books, and according to his theory, the townspeople are being tested by God in order to formulate a new 74th book. He believes her about the voices, but demands proof that they are real. Suddenly, Sarah starts drawing on a piece of paper. She sketches an image of a man flying the rocket. Khatri then goes to dig up a bag he buried when he first arrived, something no one but him knew about. Inside, there is a chocolate wrapper with the exact same flying man logo that Sarah just drew. Meanwhile, Jade asks Jim for help fixing the radio. They strip down a car to get the necessary parts. Jim climbs a tree with an antenna, trying to find a signal, while Jade suddenly starts hallucinating. He then sees the symbol carved into a tree, the same one he saw in the basement, and blood begins dripping all over him. Suddenly, the Civil War-era soldier starts chasing him, and Jade runs away in terror. The soldier catches up to him, but it turns out to be just another hallucination. In reality, Jim came to his aid, but Jade is still freaked out. Instead, Jade sits at the diner and draws the symbol he saw, and Kenny's mother recognizes it. She takes him into the diner's pantry and gives him a notebook filled with similar symbols. The notebook likely belonged to someone who was in this town a long time ago. Later, Tabitha and Ethan also come to the pantry to drop off belongings from Frank's family. There, Tabitha finds a bracelet and becomes visibly disturbed by it. When Jim returns home, he finds Tabitha digging a hole in the basement, wanting to see where the electrical power lines lead. We also learn that the bracelet she found was one she made for Jim, but he lost it the day Julie was born. Meanwhile, as Boyd and Kenny are playing catch, we see that Boyd has a tremor in his hand. He fears it might be early onset Parkinson's, as his father had it too. This gives him a drastic idea, and he tells Kenny that he plans to venture deep into the jungle on foot, hoping to find a way out. Kenny, still grieving his father, gets upset, believing it to be a suicide mission. Later, Boyd explains to Kenny that he is suffering from an extremely rare case of early onset Parkinson's, and will soon be in no condition to help anyone, so he wants to find a way out before that happens. Kenny is deeply saddened. He's always looked up to Boyd as a father figure. That night, as everyone prepares for sleep, we see a colony house resident, Kevin, who has developed feelings for one of the monsters outside, one he talks to regularly. She begs him to let her inside. The next day, Jim tells Jade that the radio picked up static, but to transmit the signal farther, they need to build a larger tower for the antenna. Jim also continues digging the hole with Tabitha, making significant progress. Father Khatri confesses to Boyd about Sarah and the voices she hears, admitting that he has been keeping her imprisoned. He believes her and wants to join Boyd on his expedition, along with Sarah, because he thinks she has a special connection to the town. Back to Jade. He notices that 2 pages of the notebook are stuck together. Hidden between them is an old photograph. Kenny's mother points out that the boy in the picture is Victor, holding his signature lunchbox. At the colony house, Donna has prepared a celebration for Fatima's first anniversary in town. Meanwhile, Kevin sneaks into the bathroom. The monster begs him to open the window, promising she won't let anyone else inside. He opens it just long enough for her to enter, then closes it again. They begin to kiss, but she soon loses control. Unable to resist what she truly is, she kills him and then opens the window for the other monsters. Meanwhile, Julie was in Victor's room, asking him about his story. At that exact moment, a girl named Trudy saw someone laughing in her room. When she stepped inside, the night creatures were already there, waiting. They tore her apart like a broken toy. Soon, the entire house was overrun. Panic spread like fire. People rushed outside in a frenzy. Fatima was calling out for Ellis, desperately searching, while Donna tried to pack as many people as she could into a van. Victor turned to Julie and told her that it had begun. Without wasting another second, he grabbed a rope, and together they descended down into the dark. But Victor froze when he saw the boy in white. He told her they needed to go to the trees. Julie panicked. She knew that's where they lived. But Victor begged her, and despite everything, she gave in. Back in the house, Ellis, who was asleep, slowly walking into a nightmare. One of the creatures noticed him. He quickly broke through a window and leapt out, landing badly, his leg badly hurt. Fatima finally found him, but he couldn't walk. The monsters are getting closer and closer. Somehow, they limped back into a corridor of the house. She shut both doors, inside, out, and placed a talisman on the wall before she started praying. The creatures are knocking, scratching, whispering, but they didn't break through. Ellis asks her how did she know it would work, and she tells him that she didn't. Meanwhile, Julie and Victor ran through the dark forest. Victor promises her that she would be safe inside a tree. As she took a step into a hollow tree, she emerged in a cold, forgotten basement near town, the same place Jade had seen the symbol for the first time. At the same time, Boyd and Father Khatri had finally made a deal to go into the woods and find a way out of this town together, when suddenly they heard the sound of a van approaching. They rushed out to help people to safety, frantic and terrified. Then, someone called out for Father Khatri. A monster slashes his throat before he could react. Boyd shot the creature and dragged Khatri inside, but the priest was fading fast. Father Khatri tells everyone to pray for him, but their prayers went unanswered. If there was any higher power in this town, it definitely wasn't good. And Father Khatri dies. The next morning, Boyd prepares some supplies for his long journey into the woods. He then heads down to the basement, where Father Khatri was keeping Sarah, and tells her they need to take a walk. He leads her deep into the woods, to the old cabin, and tells her to sit tight and wait for him. A flashback begins. Boyd is driving with Ellis and his wife, Abby, a former soldier just like Boyd. She calls him by his army nickname, Mr. Fish and Loaves, because Boyd was known to make resources out of nothing. No matter the situation, Boyd could make it work. That day, they surprise him with the retirement gift he'd always wanted, a boat. But his excitement quickly fades when they come across a fallen tree. Yes, everyone sees the tree, and just a few minutes later, they're in the town. Suddenly, Father Khatri appears in front of them, desperate and frantic, begging them to follow him, saying if they don't come with him right now, they're all going to die. Just as Abby reaches for her gun, they hear loud, terrifying, monstrous screams echoing from the forest. They follow Khatri, who leads them to a hole they had dug. Because back then, they didn't have talismans. They spend the entire night in that hole, forced to listen to the horrifying sounds of people screaming and dying above them. The next morning, when they finally climb out, Donna greets them with the chilling words, "Welcome to your worst nightmare." When the others explained everything they knew to Boyd, he immediately started using his military expertise, organizing the people, getting them to work together. After a couple of weeks, Boyd decided to explore deeper into the woods, hoping to find more resources. On one of those long ventures, he came across a goat. Meanwhile, Ellis starts noticing that his mother is acting strange, distant, not quite herself. He begs his father to stop going into the forest every day, telling him that something is wrong with Abby, that this place is getting to her. But Boyd brushes it off, insisting that Abby is the toughest person he knows, a former Marine, the strongest woman he's ever met. Even though his son warned him, Boyd ventures into the woods again. This time, as he marks his trail to avoid getting lost, he sees a wild dog. When the dog starts running, Boyd chases after it. After some time, he realizes he's lost. It starts getting dark. The monster's screams begin, growing louder, closer. Then, out of nowhere, he falls into a small cave. The monsters see him, but they don't enter. The cave is filled with talismans. That's how Boyd found them. When morning comes, he hears gunshots echoing from town. He rushes back, only to find his wife shooting everyone around her, killing them in an instant. Donna is begging her not to shoot, and Abby replies, "This is a nightmare, and this is the only way for everyone to wake up." Just as Boyd manages to calm her down for a second, suddenly, Ellis runs toward her. Boyd had to make the hardest decision of his life, and that is the reason he's on bad terms with his son in the present. Back in the present, Julie returns and explains to her parents everything that's happened. She tells them that Victor saved her life, that they were in the woods, and then suddenly, in the blink of an eye, she was somewhere else. Ethan jumps in, saying she went through the faraway tree. It can teleport people to random locations. Julie freaks out, her mind struggling to process the reality of this place. Sometime later, Jim and Jade arrive at the colony house, where Donna is burying her friends. They ask if they can build a tower on the colony house roof, since it's the highest point in town. Donna immediately agrees, telling them that 14 of her friends died there last night. And since no one will be living there anytime soon, they might as well use the house for something meaningful. At the same time, in their basement, Julie is still pressing her parents about why they wanted to split up. Tabitha opens up, and we learn what really happened to baby Thomas. Apparently, the phone rang, and Jim turned around to reach for it. At the same time, Tabitha turned to grab a diaper. In those few seconds, baby Thomas rolled over and fell off the changing table. Since that day, they blamed each other, and that blame is what led them to consider divorce. Cut to Boyd. He shows up to say goodbye to his son. He promises Ellis that he's going to find a way out of this town. Ellis, still blaming him for his mother's death, responds with bitter sarcasm that his journey in the forest worked great the last time. Swallowing his pride, Boyd tells him, "You're my son, and I'm proud of the man you've become." He then steps out and says farewell to Donna. Meanwhile, Fatima confronts Ellis. She tells him that what happened to his mother wasn't Boyd's fault, that it was this place's fault. Then she looks him in the eyes and says, "If you don't get up and go after him right now, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life." When Boyd finally reaches the old cabin, Ellis calls out to him. He tells Boyd that he knows now, it wasn't his fault, and that last night, the only thing that saved him and Fatima were the talismans Boyd found. He apologizes for putting all the blame on him. Suddenly, Sarah steps out of the cabin. Boyd turns to Ellis and tells him to trust him, and not to tell anyone she's here. Then Boyd and Sarah begin their journey into the deeper woods. Back in town, Jim and Donna rally everyone to work together, speeding up the construction of the tower. After a long day of working, all the townspeople head back to their temporary homes. Elsewhere, Tabitha finishes up today's digging in her basement. As she goes up the stairs, the atmosphere turns eerie. The staircase seems longer than usual, and she hears a baby crying. Strange numbers are written all over the walls. She sees Jim hanging from the ceiling, but it turns out to be just a nightmare. The next morning, everyone is back to work, while Tabitha and the kids try to figure out where Victor is. He's been missing since he entered the tree. At the same time, Jade and Jim are trying to figure out how to power their antenna. All the batteries are expired. Jade is frustrated because he can't find Victor. He's convinced Victor has the answers. He's been searching for him ever since he saw him in that picture in the book full of strange symbols. Jim brushes him off, telling him to stop talking about his stupid symbols and focus on the real problem. Later, Jade goes to Kenny's house, where he's been staying since he arrived, complaining about Jim and how they can't figure out how to get electricity. Kenny's mother suddenly starts yelling at him, saying he complains non-stop. "Here's your electricity," she says, flipping on the lights. Jade suddenly gets an idea. Meanwhile, Jim returns home after a long day working on the tower and decides to help his family dig the hole. Somewhere else, after walking through the woods all day, Boyd and Sarah reach the stone hut. Boyd tells her this is where he found the talismans. Every couple miles they pass, Boyd marks a tree so they don't get lost. Sarah wonders if the woods are like roads, if it all loops around and just leads you back to town. Boyd then asks her how voices could convince her to kill all those people, especially a little boy. She says they told her about Jim's family before they even arrived. They told her about the 2 cars, and they said if she didn't do what they said, her brother would die, and the whole town would die. Boyd uncuffs her, and they continue walking. After a few more hours, they reach a tree filled with bottles hanging from its branches. As Boyd tries to take one down, Sarah suddenly collapses, clutching her head in pain, then falls into a seizure. Night arrives. Boyd sets up a tent and hangs the talisman on top. Sarah finally wakes. Boyd shows her the bottle he pulled down. Inside is a single date, 1864. Sarah tells him they have to go back. During the seizure, she heard a voice, a woman screaming. She kept repeating the phrase, "Tell Mr. Fish and Loaves that I was wrong." Boyd's heart skips a beat. Fear floods his body. The only person who ever knew that nickname was his dead wife. Suddenly, something starts dragging the tent violently into the darkness. When it finally stops, Boyd quickly hangs the talisman back up. Then, a huge, blinding light appears out of nowhere. They stayed up all night. In the morning, they found themselves somewhere completely different from where Boyd had pitched the tent the night before. The area was covered in thick spider webs, clinging to every surface. Boyd begins walking in the direction of the strange light they saw, Sarah argues, insisting they should go back, when suddenly they hear someone calling for help. Boyd runs toward the voice, forcing his way through the dense cobwebs, only to see his dead wife. She screams at him, and in the blink of an eye, Boyd is completely covered in spiders. They crawl over every inch of him, biting, sinking their fangs into his skin. Sarah fights them off, managing to pull them away until they're all gone. Back in town, Jade storms into Jim's house, eager to show him his solution for electricity. The outlets don't work, and the lamps aren't supposed to turn on, but somehow they do. Jade takes the cord from a hairdryer, sticks it into the lamp's socket, screws the bulb back in, and the hairdryer powers on. They rush to tell the entire town. Everyone begins searching for as many lamps as they can. Christy pulls some old lamps off a broken-down vehicle, while Kenny brings her one from the station. There's been chemistry between them from the start. Kenny starts flirting, asking if she'd travel with him once the tower works and they get out of this place. Christy admits she likes him a lot, but reminds him she's engaged and she can't wait to go back to her fiancé. Meanwhile, at Colony House, everyone is tearing apart their electronics to gather as much wire as possible. Ellis pulls Fatima aside, asking to talk in private. He tells her no one knows if they'll go home tomorrow or die tonight. The future in this place is uncertain. He gets down on one knee and proposes with a wire ring he made himself. Fatima says yes. Later, the tower is finally complete, and everyone works together to raise it to the roof of Colony House. The time had come to test the tower. The entire town has gathered, everyone excited, hoping that home is just on the other side. People inside turn all the lamps on, powering the tower. Jim tests the radio, and they get a signal. Tabitha kisses him but tells him she needs to keep digging the hole because it's always good to have a plan B. Suddenly, they see a storm approaching. Back with Boyd and Sarah, Boyd starts feeling sick from all the spider bites. A sudden rain starts pouring from the sky, and they notice the giant tower emitting light. At the same time, Jim starts broadcasting his SOS message on the radio. But the weather changes in seconds. It was sunny just minutes ago. Just as they prepare to bring the equipment inside, someone answers on the radio. Jim starts screaming for help, trying to explain everything. When the person on the other end asks him, "Are you Jim?" He's confused. And then the person tells him, "Your wife shouldn't be digging that hole, Jim." Jim quickly storms off toward his wife, while every lamp in Colony House explodes. At the same time, the ground beneath Tabitha crumbles, and she falls into a dark cave. She gets up and notices that the power lines lead to nothing. They just hang there. Suddenly, Victor appears behind her, telling her that the boy in white told him to wait for her here. He tells her they need to go, because this is where the night creatures sleep. He shows her that they are also drawing on the walls. At the same time, Boyd can't walk anymore. He's too weak, and the night creatures will be out any second. so he begs Sarah to go without him, but she refuses to leave him behind. Then the boy in white appears, speaking to Sarah without even opening his mouth. He tells her that this place is angry now. He points toward the faraway tree, telling her they'll be safe in there. Sarah quickly takes Boyd to the tree. As she pushes him inside, Boyd is suddenly trapped in a tight space between 4 walls with no way out. To make matters worse, bartender Tom notices an entire bus full of people driving around the town. Inside the bus, a boy named Elgin tells everyone they can't be here, begging the driver to stop. And the bus parks outside the diner. Jade is visibly shocked to see the bus appearing out of nowhere. He quickly gets inside to inform others. When the passengers leave the bus, a grandma named Tilly is dancing in the rain, and the rain suddenly stops. Inside the bus, a nurse named Marielle checks on Elgin, who turns out to be fine. In the meantime, Julie gets to her house and finds Jim trying to dig out Tabitha. He tells her to go and bring help. She runs out and informs Tom and Ellis. Tom quickly asks for volunteers to help dig out a trapped woman. Randall and Brick immediately accept. As Donna explains everything to the bus driver, the guys from the bus are helping Jim in the basement, but it seems that for everything they remove, another thing collapses. Suddenly, the entire house crumbles like a toy on top of their heads. Randall manages to get out, while Brick, Tom, and Jim remain trapped under the ruins. Everyone rushes to help. Suddenly, Christy and Marielle's eyes meet. They stare at each other in disbelief. Marielle is Christy's fiancée. As time passes, Boyd is still calling for Sarah, wondering where she is. She was just behind him. Suddenly, someone answers from above, telling him he can help him if Boyd helps him later. A rope suddenly falls into the hole. After a bitter struggle, Boyd manages to climb out. He quickly pulls out his gun, but it's just a man chained to a wall. Another mystery to be solved later. Who threw the rope if the man is chained to a wall? The man tells him it's great he has a gun, because he needs Boyd to kill him. Back in the cave, Victor keeps reminding Tabitha to be quiet, or she'll wake them up. After walking through the maze, they reach a larger space, where the monsters seem to live and collect items. Cave is filled with night creatures, but luckily they are asleep. Victor notices a toy and breaks down in fear. He sits down and starts crying. Tabitha tells him it's okay to be scared, but they have to keep moving. They reach a place with small cages. Behind one of them is a creepy child that scares Tabitha. Her scream awakens the creatures. Victor freezes in fear, not even trying to run away. As night creatures are now totally aware of their presence, Tabitha pulls him into a tunnel. They crawl through suffocating space and finally get out of the cave. Meanwhile, Jade notices the symbol again, then sees the same toy that creeped out Victor. But this time, it starts screaming, and Jade screams right back at it. But it's not really there. Later, Jade smokes his blunt, like he is not tripping enough, and he asks Ethan to show him which room is Victor's. He starts searching through his stuff, while explaining to Ethan that every time he sees something weird, he sees this symbol. He shows him the picture of the guy holding the journal with symbols, and explains that Victor was here at the same time as the guy who drew the symbols. So he thinks Victor must know something. Back to the chaos, as everyone is trying to dig out Jim, Brick, and Tom. The bus driver tells all the passengers to go back to the bus, but Donna grabs the shotgun and shoots out their tire. Most of them scatter away in fear, while Kenny takes the rest and forces them into the diner. But night is just around the corner, and there's no time to rescue Jim and the others from the ruins. So they just cover them with some sheets and hope the night creatures won't notice them until tomorrow. Back to Boyd's nightmare. The man introduces himself as Martin. Boyd asks him how long he's been trapped here, and Martin tells him that he used to count days, but he couldn't bear counting the years. He tells Boyd that he needs to kill him and go before they come back, but Boyd wants to help him, telling him that they have a doctor and that he found a talisman, so Martin will be safe from the night creatures back in town. But Martin says that night creatures didn't do this to him. They're just the tip of the spear, he says, and continues, there's darkness in the forest. Nightmares you can't even imagine. Suddenly, the creepy music box starts playing, just as Boyd manages to free one of his hands. And Martin asks him if he thinks Abby was right, if all of this is just a dream. Boyd gets creeped out, then notices some kind of worms moving under Martin's skin. Suddenly, Martin scratches him and presses his wound against Boyd's while saying, "My blood is your blood now." Then he falls and dies. Boyd starts running away. He picks up a torch and suddenly, he's outside. Back at the diner, Donna and Kenny are trying to keep everyone inside as night has taken over the town. Meanwhile, Victor and Tabitha, also caught outside in the dark, quickly hide inside a trailer. Victor used to hide here when he was a kid. As they hear monstrous screams outside, Victor tells her to be quiet, reminding her that there is no talisman in here. Two of the passengers from the bus who previously ran away enter the bar. One of them, the boyfriend, thinks this is just one of those crazy stories they'll be able to tell at parties. Then someone knocks on the door, asking for help, And of course, he opens it. At the same time, one of the monsters enters the bus, pretending to drive it. When he notices someone in the back seat, he turns and sees the old couple. He tells them they picked a bad spot to hide, just before revealing his true form. Meanwhile, in front of the police station, Fatima is still calling for the other passengers who ran away to come back. But as the night creatures appear, Ellis quickly pulls her inside. They watch as some passengers say hello to the monsters outside. Fatima starts begging Ellis to go and help them, but screams erupt, and it's too late. She pulls down the curtains and stares into the eyes of the monsters, screaming at them. But they just smile, calling her to come outside for some fresh air, leading her to a breakdown. Back in the trailer, as Victor and Tabitha are talking, they can hear someone walking near the trailer. The door suddenly opens, but it's just Boyd. Luckily, he's brought a talisman with him. They then see someone running and calling for help. It's Elgin, being chased by monsters. They let him inside, but neither Victor nor Tabitha saw the bus or Elgin before, so Boyd starts asking a lot of questions. Meanwhile, under the ruins, Tom is trying to calm Brick, telling him to be quiet, but Brick is wounded. He has a piece of broken wood stuck in his stomach. He screams loudly just before he dies. As Tom turns around, one of the monsters jumps on top of him. Hearing the screams coming from under the house, Julie wants to run outside, but Donna and Tilly hold her tightly, trying to calm the poor girl. Hours pass, and morning comes. Julie wakes up and runs toward the collapsed house. They find only the remains of bartender Tom. Julie desperately calls out for her father, and luckily, he's still alive. Everyone immediately starts digging him out. Meanwhile, the bus driver, Bacta, enters the bus and sees the horror left behind from the previous night. At the same time, the group leaves the trailer, and Elgin informs them about the house that collapsed next to the diner. Tabitha immediately starts running toward town, and that's when Boyd notices the worms are now under his skin. Later that day, Boyd tries to explain to his son everything that happened to him while he was out there in the woods. But Ellis can't quite understand how Boyd teleported from one place to another, or where Sarah is. He can't process any of it and gets really upset with Boyd, because he had promised to go out there and find answers, but came back with nothing. Boyd wants to know where all this anger is coming from. Ellis explains that Fatima has started to lose herself. He fears this place is starting to get to her, and he's afraid she's going to end up just like his mother. Boyd tells him to just be there for her and everything will be all right. At the hospital, Jim has 3 broken ribs and a few stitches, but all things considered, he's fine. Tabitha tells him that the wires in the cave weren't connected to anything. It's impossible for the lamps or lights to be working. Meanwhile, Randall has stolen a gun, and Donna tries to explain that guns won't do anything against the things that come out at night. Boyd intervenes and tells him that in town, residents don't carry guns, and if Randall doesn't like the rules, he can take the gun and go live in the forest. But if he wants a roof over his head, he needs to put the rifle down. And there's no arguing with Boyd when he's on edge. In the meantime, Tabitha has taken Ethan and Julie for breakfast at the diner. She asks Kenny's mom if she can take some things from storage, because everything they had was buried under the collapsed house. Kenny's mother invites Tabitha and her family to come and live with her and Kenny, saying that mothers need to stick together. By the way, her name is Tien Chen, but it's hard to pronounce, and that's why I will call her Kenny's mother. Another problem that Donna shares with Boyd is that now, with 22 new people in town and the storm destroying half of their crops, they really have to start rationing food. Somewhere else, while Kenny is checking his rabbit traps, and Ellis picking flowers for Fatima, they come across the girl who was in the bar with her boyfriend last night. Her head is pinned to a tree, but she's not dead. She starts begging for help, and Kenny runs to get Christy. The girl tells Ellis she was in the bar with her boyfriend when some people came in and made her watch while they played with him. Kenny arrives with Christy, who takes one look at the situation and tells them that this would be a 15-hour operation even in a hospital. There's no way she could survive pulling the metal rod out of her skull. They slowly approach, trying to gently tell the girl she's going to die. But suddenly she starts screaming in pain and agony. Boyd hears the scream and rushes over. Upon realizing the situation, he quickly pulls the rod out of her head and ends her suffering. Meanwhile, Victor realizes someone was in his room. One of the house residents tells him it was Jade and Ethan. He storms over to Jade and demands the return of his violin. Jade gives it back and Victor tells him he must never enter his room again. But Jade keeps following him, asking about the symbols and the owner of the journal. Victor just tells him not to touch his stuff and walks off again. Elsewhere, Tabitha and Julie are picking out clothes in a hut near the barn. As they leave, Tabitha sees 2 disturbingly creepy children staring at her. She quickly tells Julie to hurry. When they get home, Julie asks what just happened. Tabitha tells her she saw something that wasn't there, and it's not the first time. She explains that after her son Thomas died, she could still hear him crying. Sometimes she would even go into his room and see him there, and he always seemed so peaceful. But this time, the children she saw didn't feel peaceful at all. Later, while playing with Ethan, the atmosphere suddenly turns eerie, and she sees the children staring at her again. She quickly picks up Ethan and hurries inside. At another place, Boyd talks with Donna about the girl pinned to the tree. Her name was Kelly. Those things also killed her boyfriend. His name was Brian. But here's the strange part. On Boyd's first army tour, his vehicle hit a mine and exploded. His friend who was with him in the vehicle got shrapnels through his stomach. The first time Boyd ever saw someone die. And that friend's name was Brian Kelly. He can't stand the coincidence. It's like this place is messing with his head. At the same time, Kenny heads to the church looking for Father Cautry's funeral sermon. When he goes down to check in the basement, he discovers Sarah standing there. Kenny immediately runs to find Boyd, telling him that he needs to see something, and takes him to Sarah. Boyd tells Kenny that he wants to speak with her in private. Sarah tells Boyd that she also entered a tree and came out here, in the basement. She's been hiding ever since. Boyd tells her to sit tight until he figures out what to do with her. She asks if he told Kenny she's the one responsible for his father's death, but Boyd didn't tell him. Later, Boyd tries to explain the situation to Kenny. That Sarah is connected to this place, something is talking to her, and they might be able to use that to figure out what this place really is. Meanwhile, Jim and Tabitha look in horror at their house that collapsed, without any logical reason. Jim tells Tabitha that what she said the other day about the wires not being connected to anything, it doesn't make any sense. Just like the house collapsing, or most of the things they've seen since arriving in this town. Jim, a roller coaster designer, tells her that when they build a roller coaster, they design it to do things that seem impossible. Because the more impossible it looks, the stronger the reaction from the people riding it. He has a theory. This whole town is designed, an experiment to see how people will react. He then tells her that the radio worked. He heard a man's voice. He doesn't know whether the man was warning him or threatening him, but he told him that Tabitha shouldn't be digging. And then the house collapsed. In the meantime, Boyd starts seeing visions of Father Cautry, who asks him how he plans to tell Kenny that Sarah killed his father. Boyd says Kenny will understand, but Cautry argues there's no benefit to Kenny knowing the truth. He tells Boyd that he is now the father Kenny no longer has, and asks, what will happen when you take that away? Broken people don't survive here, Cautry warns. Back at Colony House, Randall beats up one of the residents for going through his bag. Donna tells him that everyone shares their stuff here, but Randall doesn't care. He says he'll beat up anyone who touches his things again. Donna takes a step back to think about it. She then takes an axe and swings it right next to Randall's head. She then escorts him to his new home, the bus. Since he's not a team player, he'll be staying there, alone. She shows him the talisman, explaining that it must stay hanging. If it falls, he'll be dead. Since he can't process what's really going on here, she tells him, now he'll get to observe without the shades on. Every night, those things come, and there's really no way out. Meanwhile, Kenny visits Sarah, begging her to help him understand why she did what she did. People will panic when they find out about her, and it will also fall on Boyd, and Kenny can't let that happen. He tells her that he always saw her as a friend, and his mother looked at her like the daughter she never had. He begs her to convince him that she doesn't deserve to go in the box, but Sarah tells him she can't. She admits to him that she's the one who opened the doors at the clinic. She's the reason his father is dead. Sometime later, Boyd arrives at the church. Tilly approaches, wanting to talk, but Boyd tells her he needs to speak with Kenny. Tilly says she just saw Kenny running toward the medical building. Boyd rushes over and finds Kenny standing at the spot where he discovered his father's body. Kenny tells him he's never seen his mother cry, but now, every night, he hears her sobbing in her room, blaming herself, convinced that if she had been there with Kenny's dad, he wouldn't have opened the door. But he didn't open the door. He snaps at Boyd, feeling betrayed, yells that Sarah needs to go in the box. Then, he pulls off his badge, drops it on the floor, and tells Boyd to watch his own six from now on. Later that night, Randall struggles to fall asleep because his new friends are knocking on his windows. He gets up and almost opens the door, when a creepy grandma asks him if he's comfortable. He tells her that this is not scary. They have all gathered, staring at him. He curses at them, telling them that it's not scary, and they can't get inside because there is a rock on his window. Randall argues a lot with them, and they just walk away. At the same time, Jade is so obsessed with the man from the photo, and he suddenly sees him standing there in his room. But the man is not actually there, and Jade starts losing it. These hallucinations are really starting to get to him. The next morning, Jim and Tabitha burst into the church. Kenny has told them about Sarah, and they demand that she be put in the box because she tried to kill their kid. But Boyd tells them that things have changed. Someone put the tower on Colony House and told everyone that they're going home, and now they're all looking at Boyd, wondering why he doesn't carry all the answers. There's a bus full of people they don't have resources for, and a house collapsed for no goddamn reason. So if she can help figure this out, she stays out of the box. Sarah then gets out of the basement, and Tabitha threatens her, telling her that if she comes anywhere near her family, she will kill her. Meanwhile, Ethan doesn't want to leave his room since he heard that Sarah is back. Jim has always had more success with Ethan, and he talks to him, finally making him leave his room. But now Ethan wants to see Sarah. While Jim and Tabitha are arguing if Ethan should really see her, Ethan tells them that when you're on a quest, you have to face the scary things, and that's how you take their power away. Jim then takes Ethan to face Sarah. He approaches her and tells her that everyone thought she died, but she survived in the woods, and only monsters live in the woods. He tells her that she is a monster, and he is no longer afraid of her. Back to Jade, he still struggles with his symbols. When Victor enters the bar, Jade tells him that Tom is dead and the bar is closed, but Victor came to help him with the symbol. Though first, he wants Jade to do something for him. He wants him to play the violin, and then Victor will tell him about the man from the photo. Jade accepts, but Victor doesn't want him to play in here. He takes him to a place filled with abandoned vehicles. Victor did all of these. Once everyone died, and he was alone in town, he put the cars somewhere he couldn't see them. He tells Jade that he needs to play the violin here. He then climbs on a car's roof and tells him to play Twinkling Star. This was Victor's mother's car, and she used to play it to him when he was afraid. Jade starts playing, and Victor starts crying. The scene turns really emotional. The man who spent his entire life here, crippled by this town, still remains a frayed little boy. Back in town, Boyd talks with Kenny's mother. He's desperately apologizing, trying to explain why he feels sorry for not telling them about Sarah. Then suddenly, Kenny walks in. Boyd stands up and apologizes to both of them once again. Just before he leaves, he goes to the church, but the church feels different. A creepy melody starts playing from the music box. He then sees something really creepy, the ballerina dancing on the church floor. She suddenly screams at him, and Boyd is back at the diner. He never really left. Kenny and his mother pick him up, and Kenny wants to escort him home before dark. Boyd feels the pain in his arm and tells Kenny about the worms under his skin. Suddenly, the melody starts again. The ballerina gets out of the basement and starts dancing again, but only Boyd can see her. Kenny then takes him to see Christy, and he tries to explain everything to her. Even the worms underneath his skin. He tells her that whatever those things are, they were feeding on Martin for years, not letting him die. It was so bad that all he wanted was to die. That's why he passed them to Boyd. Later, while Christy talks to Kenny, he tells her that this is how it started with his dad, and he's afraid that Boyd's sickness has started. At Colony House, Donna is taking all the supplies to Kenny's mother's house to prepare rations. Donna leaves with the supplies while all the residents are preparing and fixing up Colony House for their first night since the massacre. Later, while Donna is sorting the rest of the food with Jim's family, at Colony House, one of the residents, Dale, argues with one of the new people that came in the bus, saying they're not one of them, and that they shouldn't share the little food they have. He then threatens them with a knife, wanting to kick them out of the house in the middle of the night. While Ellis is trying to calm him down, Dale accidentally stabs him in the guts with the knife. Ellis pulls the knife out and starts bleeding rapidly. It's the middle of the night, and they can't do anything to help him here. Elgin, feeling guilty, rushes outside and jumps inside the van. The night creatures are all around the field, and Elgin quickly drives the van to the front of the house. They get Ellis inside the van and start driving to the clinic just before the monsters get them. Monstrous screams can be heard all around the town, and Ellis starts having trouble breathing. After a long ride, they finally arrive at the clinic. Christy opens the doors and lets them inside. Boyd is creeped out to see his son wounded. Ellis starts suffocating, his blood filling his lungs. Christy quickly cuts a hole in his body to relieve the pressure so he can breathe. After some time, Christy manages to stabilize him, but he lost a lot of blood, and his organs will soon start to fail. The problem is, the only one with the same blood type is Boyd, and Boyd doesn't want to give him his blood, because he has worms swimming inside his veins. Everyone thinks that Boyd is tripping, and Kenny points a gun to his head, telling him to sit down and let Christy do her work. But suddenly, everyone notices the worms on Boyd's arm. Kenny tells Boyd to give the worms to him. If they can really be passed around, Kenny wants to take them, so Boyd can give blood to Ellis. Then Boyd suddenly gets an idea. He knows exactly where to put the worms. He goes outside, calling for the night creatures to come and get him, yelling that all they can do is knock on their doors, knock on their windows. Suddenly, the creepiest of them all stands in front of him, just smiling. And then, more of them come, completely surrounding Boyd. He cuts himself on his hand, then cuts the monster's throat, and it just keeps smiling. He presses his wound against Smiley's and whispers, "My blood is your blood now." Boyd feels the worms leaving his body, but Smiley just comments that he likes this game. Suddenly, the monster starts screaming while collapsing to the ground. The other monsters don't even notice Boyd anymore. They're curiously looking at Smiley, who's still screaming on the floor. Boyd then gets back inside and tells everyone that his blood is now clear, so Christy quickly transfuses Boyd's blood to Ellis. Meanwhile, Fatima, her face full of tears, is sobbing over almost losing Ellis. While Christy is trying to comfort her, Fatima asks if she has any pregnancy tests. Christy runs several tests throughout the night and confirms by morning that Fatima is indeed pregnant. Sometime later, the group leaves the clinic, while the monster is still lying on the floor. Kenny immediately suggests burning the body. Christy thinks this is a perfect chance to study them. Boyd tells Ellis to go up to Colony House to rest and to keep this quiet. Kenny still argues, telling Christy she's about to bring something evil into her home. But they still decide to bring it inside, knowing they might never get an opportunity like this again. The creature, unable to hide its true form anymore. Its teeth made for tearing up flesh. Its eyes enough to make the blood in your veins turn to ice. Kenny says that Boyd has put the worms inside the scariest thing they've ever seen, and now it's dead. He wonders what happened to the worms. Suddenly, Marielle gets sick and starts vomiting rapidly. Christy takes her to bed, then comes back. Just as she prepares to cut the creature, it moves. Christy says she just hit a nerve, but Kenny is still trying to stop them from doing this. He bursts outside and Christy goes after him. After some time, Marielle gets up from the bed and goes to look for them, but the monster is no longer there. As she rushes outside, Boyd asks her if she's okay. While she tries to explain that body is missing, Smiley stands right in front of them. She freezes as the monster approaches her. A creepy melody starts playing from the music box. And then, she wakes up. It was just a nightmare. In reality, they are already opening the creature's chest. And Christy, in shock, says that it's human. At least it was. It has the exact same anatomy, but it's shriveled, dried up, like something you'd see in a museum. She gets upset that they didn't find anything useful and starts stabbing the creature with the scalpel. Suddenly, bile starts pouring from its gallbladder. Meanwhile, Ethan is baking pancakes with Kenny's mother and says that he wants to see Victor today, but Jim forbids him to go up to Colony House, while Tabitha says it's okay for him to go. Jim pulls Tabitha aside, telling her he doesn't want his 9-year-old son hanging out with some emotionally stunted freak. Tabitha reminds him that this freak saved their daughter's life, and hers too, in the cave. But Jim insists that maybe that's what they wanted her to think, still believing all of this is some kind of experiment. Not wanting to argue any further, Tabitha goes back inside. Suddenly, a drone flies over Jim's head. Randall is the one controlling it. Jim later visits him in the bus, and Randall tells him the drone was supposed to be for his nephew's birthday. Jim thanks him for helping him the other day in the basement, but Randall says that since Jim's wife wasn't even there, he got the other 2 guys killed for nothing. But Jim swallows his pride and tells him that this drone could still get him home, in time for his nephew's birthday. He then takes Randall on a walk and tells him about the voice he heard on the radio the other day, sharing his theory that all of this is one giant experiment run by the government. He shows him the RV, where he keeps the antenna and the radio, and says if they can lift the antenna using the drone, they might get a better signal. Randall circles back to Jim's experiment theory, saying if all of this is a government experiment, then surely some of the residents must be involved. How else would they keep the experiment on track? Later, in the greenhouse next to Colony House, Donna tells Fatima that all the plants are dying. It's like they're growing in poisoned soil. But Fatima stops her and says quietly that she's pregnant. Donna is thrilled. She's so happy, like she's the dad. But Fatima tells her that she was told she could never have kids. That what's happening right now is medically impossible. Donna starts laughing, saying that after everything they've seen here, roads that lead nowhere, monsters that come out in the dark, she just can't wrap her head around a miracle. And finally, someone has managed to lift Fatima's spirits. At the same time, Tabitha is hanging out with Jade at the bar. He shows her the picture of a man holding the journal. Victor told him that his name was Christopher, how he used to be the funniest person in town, making everyone laugh, until he started seeing the symbol. The same symbol that Jade is seeing, and she tells him about the strange children she saw multiple times. They share their experiences, trying to make sense of it all. And when Tabitha sees the drawing of the symbol, she tells Jade that she's seen it before, in the cave, with Victor. Speaking of Victor, he's out measuring trees with Ethan, trying to see if they've moved again. Victor tells Ethan that the trees are changing. They're losing their leaves. Ethan says that happens every year, but Victor tells him it's never happened here before. And when things start changing around here, it usually means something very bad is coming. Back to Boyd. He collects some of the bile in a bottle, hoping it might be poisonous to the night creatures. This is where things start to get really weird. While Elgin is taking a bath, the music box starts playing again. Suddenly, a disturbingly pale woman in a kimono appears and pushes him underwater. The next morning, Kenny is woken by the smell of food. His mother is preparing his favorite meal. Suddenly the phone rings. He answers, and a voice on the other end begins to sing. They touch, they break, they steal. No one here is free. Here they come. They come for 3. Unless you stop the melody. Kenny slowly lowers the phone and notices the pot on the stove. It's full of cicadas. One of them jumps onto his arm. But then he wakes up. Just a nightmare. Or isn't it? The cicadas from his dream have left a strange mark on his hand. That same day, Randall and Jim finally complete their project and are ready to test it. Randall flies the drone as high as it will go, but it's still not enough. He says if anyone wants to help, they'll find a way. He believes they need to start looking for the people inside, people who might be involved on this experiment. He asks Jim, "Who told you how this town works? Who laid out the rules?" Jim says it was Boyd, Donna, and Father Cautry. He explains that Cautry died, but Randall presses, "Did you see him die?" He wonders if anyone who dies here is actually dead, or if they're just playing a role. Jim mentions Sarah's brother. He saw him dying. Randall replies, "Or maybe you didn't. Him arriving just in time to save your kid. Maybe it's all a show." Jim begins to seriously question everything. Later, they go to the church. Randall bluntly asks Sarah if her brother is still alive. Before she can answer, Donna walks in. Randall starts laughing. "What a coincidence," he says. Right when we start asking questions, he starts accusing Donna of all kinds of random things, and Jim pulls him outside. He tells Randall to go back to the bus and lay low. Just before nightfall, "We'll meet at the RV. I want to see what the monsters do when they don't know they're being watched." Meanwhile, Victor stops by Ethan's house and gives him a coat he used to wear as a kid. "It's getting cold," he says. They all head to the diner to help Kenny's mom. Ethan finds a toy in the coat's pocket. When Victor sees it, he flashes back. It was a gift from his mother. She gave it to him that night when everyone in town died. Suddenly, Jade storms in, furious at Victor, because he didn't tell him that he saw Symbol when he was in cave with Tabitha. Victor gets scared and walks away. Later, in his room, he stares at the toy, remembering that night. His mother gave him the toy and told him to stay put, and no matter what he hears, he cannot get out until the morning. Back in the present, Tabitha checks in on him, asking why he didn't tell Jade about the symbol in cave. Victor replies that it's not good for people to go looking for answers, because they never come back. He tells her his mother said they were going home that night, the night everyone died. He doesn't remember what happened, but he says that the pictures might remember for him. He takes Tabitha to a place where he has hidden the drawings, but he's too scared to remember. "You need to be brave," she says gently. Victor just wants to help, so he opens the trunk full of drawings. Suddenly it all starts coming back. Victor wasn't alone that night. He had a sister. The drawings aren't his, they're hers. He breaks down crying, remembering how she got scared and ran after their mother, and how he didn't come out until morning. Victor cries some more, the memories being too much for him to handle. But after some time, he finally calms down. Tabitha picks up another drawing. "What's this one?" And Victor tells her that his mom went there that night to save the children locked in the tower. Meanwhile, Mariel and Christy have called Boyd and Kenny to the clinic. They've been hearing noises coming from the room where the night creature is. As they enter, something is moving under the sheet. The entire body is covered in cicadas. Kenny blurts out that he had a dream about cicadas, and one burned him. Christy adds that Elgin dreamt about drowning and woke up spitting out water. Mariel panics, saying that their dreams can hurt them now. Donna walks in mid-chaos, and Boyd pulls her aside to show her the creature. But the cicadas are gone. The doors were closed the whole time, so it doesn't make any sense. Donna tells him to immediately burn the body. They get right to it. Boyd tells the others to sleep in shifts tonight. Randall stands in the corner, watching everything very closely. Boyd and Kenny drag the creature's body out of town and set it on fire. Meanwhile, Randall runs into Donna outside Colony House. He apologizes for his behavior earlier. "We're all in this together," he says. Back in town, Boyd and Kenny return. But suddenly, one of the residents bursts out of a house, covered in blood, screaming for help. When they enter the man's house, they witness an unimaginable horror. His wife is dead on the bed, pieces of her scattered all across the room. He tells them she was screaming, and he tried to wake her up as she started talking in her sleep. Then suddenly her body and her face got torn apart by nothing. Boyd asks him what she was saying, and the man tells them she kept repeating the phrase, "They touch, they break, they steal. No one here is free." The same melody Kenny had heard in his dream. When Boyd leaves the man's house, he tells Julie and Kenny that no one can be alone tonight. He orders them to go door to door and inform everyone in town that it's not safe to sleep tonight. Meanwhile, Jim arrives at the RV, but Randall has changed the plan. He's tied Donna to a tree, telling Jim he saw her at the clinic carrying one of the monsters. He believes it's some kind of animatronic, and that they had a faulty model. When Donna tries to explain that Boyd killed one of the monsters, Randall remarks how funny it is that monsters can suddenly die, wondering how the rules change when someone catches them lying. When Jim tries to free Donna, Randall throws him to the ground and pulls out his knife. Luckily, Boyd shows up and fires his gun into the air. Julie has told him that Jim went to the RV. Randall then drops the knife, and they free Donna. Boyd tells them they have 5 minutes of daylight left and need to get back to town immediately, but Randall pulls out the vehicle keys and throws them into the woods. As darkness takes over the town and cicadas swarm the area, the group is forced to spend the night in the RV. Randall starts provoking Jim, and Boyd handcuffs him. Jim mentions that their van has a basic ignition system, and even without the keys, he could probably get it started. But Boyd tells him that he is not losing another person to probably. At the same time, Jade and Tabitha are going through Victor's drawings. Tabitha shows him the one with the tower, telling him Victor said his mother went there to save the children locked inside. She tells Jade about a dream she had, walking up the same steps in the tower. All this time, she thought the children were trying to scare her, but now she wonders if they were just asking for her help. Back at the RV, Boyd dips all of his bullets in the monster's bile, saying that if this works, they'll all walk back to town. Donna suggests giving Randall a gun to test if it works. After all, he doesn't believe any of this is real anyway. But she urges them to hurry, because their friends are getting closer and closer. Randall agrees, and just as Boyd uncuffs him, the monsters suddenly stop and stare at them. Donna says something's wrong, they never act like this. And Jim confirms that they have stopped on his side too. Suddenly, the creepy melody begins playing on the radio. To make things even more unsettling, the radio is broken into pieces, yet it's still playing. Boyd says he's heard that music before, and every time it plays, bad shit follows. Then, the melody stops. The lights begin blinking. Randall freaks out and breaks one of the windows to escape. Since the talisman doesn't work once the seal is broken, Boyd smashes another window and tells Jim to start the van. The monsters immediately begin following Randall. Boyd fires at them, but the bile-soaked bullets don't work. Suddenly he sees his dead wife. She's calling to him, begging him to come with her. As he hears the van engine finally roar to life, he breaks from his trance and runs for it. Night creatures are after him, but they successfully drive off. Meanwhile, Randall runs through the woods. Out of nowhere, he's swarmed by thousands of cicadas, crawling all over his body and forcing their way into his mouth. Back at Colony House, most of the residents are staying there for the night. Tilly comments that Fatima will be a great mom. When Fatima asks how she knows, Tilly says she has 4 kids and 7 grandkids, and that she knows an expecting mother when she sees one. Suddenly, Elgin looks up at her and says he remembered his dream from the bus. And if you don't remember, when Bus arrived at the town, Elgin was the one who told everyone they can't be here. At the same time, upstairs, cicadas have found their way into the room and start crawling all over Marielle. When Christy enters, she can't see them. At that exact moment, Boyd and the others return, and they hear screams coming from upstairs. When they rush in, they find Marielle in a strange coma, her eyes completely gray. As Boyd tries to calm Christy down, Ellis tells him he needs to come immediately. He takes Boyd to Elgin, who explains that he remembered his dream from the bus, right when Fatima told him she was pregnant. The moment turns awkward. Boyd didn't even know. But Elgin continues describing his dream. There was a boy, dressed all in white, and he kept repeating the same phrase over and over. Here they come. They come for 3, unless you stop the melody. At that exact moment, Julie falls on the ground, desperately trying to shake off the cicadas no one else can see, and eventually suffers the same fate as Randall and Marielle. The morning after, Christy checks on Julie and finds that there's nothing medically wrong with her. Suddenly, Julie starts screaming at the top of her lungs, like she's trapped in some kind of nightmare. The same thing is happening to Marielle at Colony House, and no one knows why. Meanwhile, Donna takes Elgin and Dale into the forest to look for Randall's body. They find Randall quickly, but shockingly, he's not dead. Even though he was out there all night, he's still alive. At the same time, Boyd takes Sarah and Kenny into the woods to show them the place where he reappeared after leaving the chamber. The place where he first heard the creepy melody. Sarah suddenly tells them she can hear the music right now. The music box is here, she says. Then she starts digging, insisting it's underground. Suddenly she whispers that she can hear them screaming. Something is hurting them. Her nose starts to bleed, and she screams in pain, repeating the melody over and over. Boyd and Kenny quickly pull her away from the spot. She immediately feels better and then says to Boyd, "It's laughing at you for bringing it back to town." for setting it free. Then she adds, "It wants to make us suffer." She turns to Kenny and says, "It got so excited when it touched your arm." Sarah begins talking about Julie and the others, how they're dying. And when they die, it will be too late for everyone. She tells Boyd he has to make the music stop, but he doesn't know how to stop something he can't even see. After thinking for a moment, he suggests going back to town. Kenny protests, saying the music box is here, but Boyd reminds him they're dealing with something far beyond their understanding, and at least now, they know more than they did this morning. Back to Julie, still in a weird trance. Tabitha tells Jim that the last time Victor saw his mother, she told him she needed to save the children locked up in the tower. She then tells him about the children she's been seeing, and the dreams she's had about the tower, thinking the only way to save Julie is to find that tower. Jim tells her that Victor's mother went to the tower and never came back, and because of that, Victor had to grow up here alone. But Tabitha says that's exactly why Jim needs to stay, so the kids will have someone if she doesn't come back. She then asks Victor if he knows the way to the tower. He doesn't, but he knows the way to the bottle tree, and apparently that tree can take you to the tower. In the meantime, Jade starts seeing visions of dead bartender Tom, who tells him that he already knows the symbol is down there in the tunnels. The only question is how far he's willing to go to find answers. Jade says he probably wouldn't even find anything down there, but Tom tells him it's natural design, just like his brain is in his skull and his heart behind his ribs, because nature always puts the most precious things in the hardest places to reach. Jade thinks it's crazy, but then Tom asks, even if it saves Julie's life, and that changes everything. Tabitha and her family mean something to him now. So Jade ties a thread to a tree to mark the way back and climbs down into the cave. Deeper inside, he stumbles across the toy from earlier visions, only this time, it's real. Fear creeps in, but there's no turning back. The path leads into a wider chamber. Then comes the creepy whispers, Ankui. Children appear, lying on stone slabs, all repeating the same word, Ankui, Ankui, Ankui. Looking up, the roots above have twisted into the symbol. A blink later, the children vanish. Elsewhere, Tabitha and Victor reach the bottle tree. This is where he found his mother, lifeless on the ground. She never made it to the tree. Victor shows her that this is actually a faraway tree. One last gesture. Victor packs some snacks in his lunchbox for her. Goodbyes are exchanged. And Tabitha steps inside the tree, a shift in space, and she's standing at the tower's doorway. She begins to climb. It's exactly as seen in the dreams. In the distance, the word Ankui echoes again. Step by step, the top gets closer, until finally, she's there. Then comes the boy in white, quiet, almost gentle. "I'm really sorry, but this is the only way." And then, he pushes her off the tower. Back at Colony House, people are praying desperately. Donna orders one of her people to lock up all the guns in the shed, not wanting weapons in the house while everyone is on edge. The man does as he's told, but Reggie appears, slices his throat, and steals a shotgun from the locker. Back to Boyd, now inside the church, asking if there's anyone up there, if someone's actually enjoying all of this. He reflects on Khatri, how he had a plan, how he believed he was put here for a reason, until one of those things sliced his throat. And in his final breaths, all Khatri did was pray, to prove he had never lost faith. Boyd becomes emotional, trying to hold back his tears, voice breaking as he curses under his breath. Donna finds him there and tells him that the future in this town has never felt more uncertain, but that, in the middle of all this chaos, the kids are using what little time they have left the best they can. She tells him to come to Colony House, because Ellis is getting married right now. Even in the chaos, Boyd takes a moment. Ellis and Fatima stand together, beautifully dressed, ready to share their vows. Fatima says her heart has belonged to him since the day they met, and that he is the love of her life. Ellis tells her that there were times when he felt like he was stumbling in the dark, and she was the light that guided him through. Something about those words hits Boyd hard. His mind drifts elsewhere. When they ask if he's all right, he quietly repeats to himself, "Light in dark places." He congratulated them both and walked away. He goes to take the torch, but Reggie appears behind him, holding the stolen shotgun. He claims everything was fine until Boyd went into the forest, blaming him for everything that's happening now. Boyd tries to explain that the torch could help fix things, but Reggie fires first, shooting him. Boyd, wounded, pulls out his gun and kills Reggie. He goes back to the place where the music box is supposed to be, barely manages to light the torch, and suddenly he is back in the dungeon. Music box starts playing. Then he notices Randall, Julie, and Marielle chained to the wall. Boyd quickly goes to destroy the music box, but his wife appears in front of him. Says that destroying the box will not end their suffering, only prolong it. All three begin to scream, both there and in reality. While Abby keeps talking, trying to convince him to give up, says that this place wants him to fight, wants him to have hope that he can actually win, because hope is what makes him willing to suffer. reminds him that it's not fear that feeds the forest, it's hope. As the screaming continues, Abby tells him to let it go, because if they don't die today, they'll die tomorrow. But Boyd says no, then destroys the music box into pieces. Suddenly, Julie wakes up. So does Marielle. And also Randall. Boyd ends up outside, yelling that they are not gonna break him. Meanwhile, Tabitha wakes up somewhere, stands up and walks to the window. A doctor walks in and informs her that she is in the St. Anthony Hospital. 3 days ago, a pair of hikers found her in the woods, lying unconscious on the side of the trail. When she looks through the window, she realizes that she is back to the real world. As Tabitha struggles to process that she actually left the town, possibly the first person who ever did, the doctor tells her to sit tight and rest. More tests will follow soon, but Tabitha quickly changes into her old clothes and leaves the hospital. Walking around the city, she spots the boy in white in the distance and starts following him all the way into a store. But it turns out to be just a random kid. Back in Fromville, Ethan escapes into the woods and is barely found. He tells everyone they need to search for his mother. Jim prepares to go after her into the forest. It's been 3 days since she left, and guilt is eating him up. Boyd desperately tries to stop him from doing something reckless, but Jim won't listen. Boyd then suggests that if the trip has to happen, there might be a safer way. Starting at the stone hut every morning would give at least some advantage, a place to return to at night. Kenny chimes in, saying he wants to go with Jim. Back in the real world, Tabitha asks 2 strangers to borrow a phone and calls her mother. On the other end, her mom is sick with worry, saying the police have been looking for them. She only wanted to hear her mother's voice. Her mom breaks down, begging her to come back home, but Tabitha hangs up. Back in the nightmare, Jim says goodbye to Ethan and Julie. He then leaves with Kenny to look for Tabitha. Suddenly, Ellis calls for Boyd to come with him. Out in the fields, Donna informs them that all of the crops are rotten. Everything that survived the storm is ruined. A few hours later, Jim and Kenny encounter strange-looking statues. They walk past them and discover a few wooden huts. Jim suggests hanging Talisman in one of these, and start from here in the morning. Back to Tabitha. Now in a church, she confesses to the priest, saying that nothing she's been through seems possible, and her mind is falling apart. The priest tells her that God will always catch her if she falls, but she doesn't want to talk about God, because if he is real, he made that horrible place. She rushes to leave, but the priest stops her, insisting on helping. To distract her thoughts, he asks what's inside the lunchbox. As she takes out some snacks, she sees the address at the bottom of the box, and where to return it if ever lost. Storming off, she goes directly to the address. A man walks past and tells her to get the hell out of there. But then he notices the lunchbox and asks where she got it. In that moment, Tabitha realizes this man is Victor's father. Meanwhile, at Colony House, Elgin sees the woman in the kimono again. She touches his face, and he wakes up, still not understanding why she keeps appearing in his dreams. The scene shifts to Boyd and Donna, arguing about the food situation. There's nothing left in town. The only option? Start killing the animals. Ethan hears the conversation and gets really upset. Those animals have been his friends since the day he arrived. When Boyd tries to comfort him, Ethan says to make sure Alma, the goat he loves the most, is the first to go. When Boyd asks why, Ethan says, so she doesn't have to watch her friends die. Later that night, something bangs violently on the door of Jim and Kenny's hut. Jim starts rethinking everything. The reason Tabitha left alone was so someone could be there for the kids. He tells Kenny they'll head back first thing in the morning. Back in town, monsters open the barn gate and release the animals. While Boyd and Jade are talking in the police station, they notice cows walking down the street. They rush out and start herding them back. Sheeps are also running through the streets. Victor and Kenny's mom join the effort. From the bus, Randall spots monsters appearing behind the group. He turns on the headlights and rings the siren to alert the town. Ethan sees Alma walking by. Wanting to help, he opens the door. A creepy grandma enters the house immediately and starts going after them. They escape through the back. Sarah appears, hiding them in the bushes as the old woman grows more aggressive. Another creature shows up and spots them. Randall sees the chase and yells for them to get on the bus. One of the monsters approaches Jade, gets close, and kills a cow on the spot. Victor quickly grabs him and pulls him away from the creature, and together they get a few animals into the bar. Boyd and Kenny's mom manage to get a cow into the barn, barely escaping the monsters behind them. Boyd quickly places a talisman on the door, but it won't help. They're already inside. One of them mocks Boyd, saying, "Thought this place couldn't break you?" Then they grab Kenny's mother and handcuff Boyd to a pillar. He begs them to kill him instead and leave her alone. But the monster replies, "You think this place couldn't break you? Let's see." Then they begin skinning Kenny's mother alive. tearing her apart while Boyd is forced to watch. The next morning, Jade and Victor sit in the bar, surrounded by animals. Jade steps outside and walks into the barn. What he finds inside stops him cold. Kenny's mother is completely torn apart. Boyd is sitting there, broken, quietly repeating something in Chinese. Jade rushes over and uncuffs him. The moment he's free, he runs for Tian Chen. It's the kind of moment where tears don't ask permission. This demands them. Meanwhile, Kenny is awoken by Jim calling for him. When he gets there, Jim has found food growing all around the lake, enough to feed the entire town. About the town, it started to change. It started snowing, but it feels depressed, feels empty. Ethan and Julie are crying out loud, feeling sorry for Tian Chen. At the colony house, Fatima is feeling incredibly sick. She can't eat or drink, her body just rejects everything. Her pregnancy really taking its toll. Even her teeth start falling out. Back in town, Kenny and Jim have arrived, all excited and happy that they've found food. Boyd comes to give the bad news, but words are not necessary. Their faces already say everything. Kenny starts calling out for his mother, but there is no answer. He then sits at the diner. Christy is there for him. He tells her that whenever he thinks about his dad, all he can see is him lying there in the basement. He asks Christy to make his mother look nice, so he doesn't remember her like he does with his dad. When Christy arrives at the church, Jade is there, sitting with Kenny's mother, not wanting her to be alone. They both start cleaning her up. Even Sarah comes in, bringing a beautiful dress. She says that Tian Chen once told her she would wear that dress the day they all go home. Meanwhile, Kenny fills the gallons with alcohol, saying that he's gonna enter the cave and burn every last one of those things. Boyd, knowing the pain Kenny carries inside, simply replies, "Okay, let's do it." When they get in front of the cave, Kenny says that he can't stop thinking about how scared she was there, all alone. Then Boyd tells him that she wasn't alone, admitting that they made him watch. And Kenny breaks down in tears while Boyd tells him that she was strong, that she was brave. And before she died, she said, "Oho, chugucho, yigata, kochinjala," something like that. I don't know Chinese, and neither does Boyd. But Kenny starts crying even louder, saying that those words mean, "Take care of him, he'll be alone now." Boyd then hugs him tightly and takes him to the church to see his mother. Jade and Christy did a marvelous job. Kenny can at least remember his mother, beautiful as she was. Meanwhile, Fatima sees the rotten crops, and one of the residents tells her they will try to compost it and turn the soil around. But when Fatima smells the rotten food, she suddenly gets a strong urge to try it. As she takes the first bite, she takes more, unable to stop herself, violently forcing the rotten food into her mouth. Back in the real world, Tabitha wakes up, and Victor's father, Henry, is there with a gun, saying she passed out on his front porch. When Tabitha stands up to leave, he points the gun at her, saying that she showed up at his doorstep with a lunchbox his son left with more than 40 years ago, and he wants to know everything. When she starts explaining everything from the beginning, how she and her family got trapped in the town they couldn't leave, he gets upset, asking where she got the lunchbox. She says that Victor gave it to her a couple of days ago. He obviously doesn't believe her. But then she shows him articles on the internet about her family being missing, along with some other people from the town. But he asks, "How did you leave then, if no one else could?" She says she doesn't know. She just thought if she saved the children from the tower. He then stops her, asking her to repeat what she just said. When she starts talking about the children from the tower, he seems very confused. He then prepares her a meal and tells her that, before his family disappeared, his wife Miranda started hearing voices, children, locked in the tower. He then shows her Victor's and Eloise's room, saying that his kids were his life, and when they disappeared, it ripped his world to pieces. He doesn't know how Tabitha knows about the voices his wife heard, or how she has his son's lunchbox. The only possible explanation he can come up with is that she's actually telling the truth, and that means his son is alive. He takes Tabitha down to his basement, explaining that when his wife Miranda started seeing things, she painted everything she saw. There are drawings of the children Tabitha has been seeing. Miranda said that she was chosen, that it was a place that was everywhere, but you couldn't find it if you tried. Somewhere you could stumble into from anywhere, but never find the way to leave. She said there were people there, people who were lost and afraid, who found themselves living inside a nightmare they couldn't escape, fighting a battle they knew they couldn't win. She said they were holding on to hope, and when that hope was gone, they held on to each other. She said that out of all the people who would find their way to this place, she was the one who had been chosen to free the children. But she wasn't the first. Others were chosen before her. She could see each and every one, and all of them had failed. None of them had ever set the children free, and none of them had ever gone home. So he guesses Tabitha is now chosen too. Back in town, Jim comes home from the funeral, and suddenly the phone rings. When he answers, the kid's voice on the other end says, "Hello, Dad. It's Thomas." Jim tells him that he is not his son. The voice on the other end asks, "Why did you let Mommy go? Is it because you didn't love her anymore?" Then the voice tells him he shouldn't let Julie and Ethan play outside so close to dark. He quickly drops the phone, rushes outside, and brings his children home. The next day, Tabitha starts hearing bottles gently ringing against each other, and Henry tells her that they're hanging on a tree in his backyard. He shows her the tree, but obviously, it's not the same as the one she went through. Tabitha explains that the tree she went through had some kind of opening, one you could step into, but he tells her that this is not the original tree. Miranda loved the bottle tree so much that she made a replica in their backyard. The original is just a couple of towns away. In fact, Henry says, that tree is where Miranda's visions had started. Tabitha immediately tells him to take her there. They sit in the car, and suddenly music starts playing on the radio. Henry tells her that there's a tape stuck in there, and sometimes it just starts on its own. That was his and his wife's favorite song. Just then, Tabitha tells him that it's hers and her husband's favorite song too. As they drive, Tabitha notices the exact same bracelet she once made for Jim in Henry's car, and Henry tells her that Miranda made it for him. Tabitha starts repeating that this can't be real, that she went through a tree to the tower, and everything led her here like some kind of fairy tale. She starts crying, saying that they're not really home. It's just more of that place. When Henry pulls over, Tabitha asks him what will happen when she steps out of the car and refuses to play along. She then tries to leave, but Henry doesn't let her. He holds her door as he drives, and they get hit by another car. Back in town, Boyd tells Ellis that he wants to try and trap one of those things tonight, saying that if talismans can keep them from entering, maybe they can also keep them from leaving. Just then, Donna shows up, saying she sent a group of people to the lake to bring back the rest of the food. When Boyd tells her his plan, and that he's eager to question those things, to make them talk, she says they were shooting at them with shotguns, and all it did was make them smile. She tells them to calm down and think they've got a baby on the way. But Boyd goes to the bus and tells Randall that he will stay here tonight, because he wants to watch their friends when they come out of the woods. Back at the colony house, Fatima goes back to the pile of trash and starts eating the rotten food again. But this time, Tilly sees her. Sometime later, she comes to Fatima's room and tells her that when she was pregnant, she had the urge to lick the inside of eggshells. She assures her that these weird cravings will go away just as suddenly as they came. But Fatima is afraid something is wrong with the baby. Tilly tells her that there is a way to find out. She then pulls out tarot cards, telling Fatima to ask them her question. She asks if her baby is okay, and just as Tilly is about to pull a card, a crow smashes into their window. She goes for the card again, and the crow breaks through the glass, immediately slamming into the wall to its death. Meanwhile, the group has arrived at the wooden huts and started collecting food. Jade separates from the group to pee, when he notices strange-looking red stones. Suddenly, he sees a man pinned to a tree through his eye. The man grabs him, but it turns out to be one of his visions. Jade freaks out and tells the group he's going back to town. Christy goes after him, knowing there's no time to get to town before dark. But then she steps into a bear trap. As they try to deactivate it, the safety pin breaks, and it's almost night. Jade and Dale quickly run to the weird statues, and Jade breaks apart one of them. They return with the metal rods and manage to free Christy's leg. Just then, Jade sees the man without the eye again, drinking blood from a skull. He snaps back, and they take Christy to safety. Back to Tabitha. She wakes up inside the ambulance vehicle. Henry is hurt a little more, but nothing too serious. The cop informs her that they've been looking for her ever since she escaped the hospital. Just then, the ambulance stops. There's a tree in the middle of the road. As they get out to assess the situation, crows start appearing out of nowhere. Thousands of them. Tabitha begins to panic, desperately trying to explain. At the same time, Ethan hears a phone ringing. When he answers, the voice on the other end says he's Thomas again, telling Ethan that Mommy is in trouble, that she's in an ambulance, and on her way here. Jim takes the phone from Ethan and tells the person on the line to leave his children alone. The voice replies, "They're not your children anymore." Jim snaps and rips the phone from the wall. Meanwhile, in the ambulance, the EMTs are confused. They left town just minutes ago, but now they can't find the road. Tabitha tries to explain that these woods aren't safe at night, begging them to go back to town because there are people there who can help them. Back at the bus, Randall says something's wrong. Those things should be all over the place by now. He explains that they're creatures of habit. The one in the nurse's uniform stands by the glass and hums every single night. Another one sits on the swing. A couple sits by the pool. They've got patterns, routines, and all of that should already be happening. Suddenly, they notice an ambulance arriving in town. Ethan yells that it's just like the voice on the phone said. He rushes outside, but Boyd stops him. The ambulance comes to a halt when the EMTs see a woman lying in the road. Tabitha tries to explain that it's not a real person. The cop handcuffs her to the vehicle. The EMT steps out to check on the woman, but she reveals her true monstrous form and kills both of them in the blink of an eye. The cop starts shooting at the creature, but soon finds herself surrounded. She runs off, leaving Tabitha and Henry in the vehicle. Henry wakes up to the sound of monstrous screaming outside. Jim opens the ambulance doors and is relieved to see Tabitha alive. Boyd arrives, but he doesn't have the keys to the handcuffs. Randall goes to grab the toolkit from the bus, but when he returns, his path is blocked by the creatures. He throws the kit to Boyd and tries to run. That's when thousands of cicadas start crawling all over him. Boyd hands the toolkit to Jim and starts searching for the ambulance keys but can't find them. Suddenly, one of the monsters appears behind him, holding the keys. She eerily tells him to take them, but they get to keep Randall. She taunts that Boyd can't save them all. Boyd grabs the keys, cursing the twisted creature. Meanwhile, the cop, panicked and firing wildly, accidentally shoots a resident of Colony House. When they let the cop inside, she sees the mess she's made and struggles to process it, her mind still in disbelief. Boyd and the others arrive at Colony House, and Donna lets them in. The entire house is shocked to see Tabitha. They thought she was dead. Elsewhere, Victor and Sarah are in her basement. He's built a little house out of sheets because he needs to remember some things, and inside it, he feels safe. He begins talking about the day everyone died. There were bodies everywhere. That was the day he met the boy in white, his only friend during all those lonely years. Victor says he couldn't bury them all, so the boy in white told him to gather things that were precious to the people who died, and bury those instead. When Sarah asks why he needs her, he says it's because he might have to remember scary things, and she's the scariest person in town according to him. As he pulls items from the suitcase, he starts remembering who each belonged to, but there's nothing for Christopher. Suddenly, he starts having a panic attack, saying he doesn't want to do this anymore. Then he remembers what's missing. His name was Jasper, the creepy toy that belonged to Christopher. One day, Victor saw him talking to Jasper. Now he realizes Jasper is the one who can tell them what happened. Back at Colony House, the girl who was shot has succumbed to her wounds. Boyd breaks down, yelling at the police officer, showing her what she's done. But Donna tells him to go upstairs right now. There, she breaks down herself, saying she can't do this anymore and that she is scared. Later that night, Fatima sneaks into the room with her dead friend's body. She pushes her fingers into the wound and starts sucking the blood from her fingers. Boyd finally manages to calm Donna down, but then they notice flashing ambulance lights. When they look outside, they see Randall lying there, badly wounded, but still alive. They immediately bring Randall inside, and everyone is shocked by his condition. The piece of his face is missing. He starts fighting everyone off, yelling that Boyd did this to him, that Boyd left him out there. The next morning, Victor returns to Colony House. Donna tells him that his father is here, but Victor hasn't seen him in 40 years. He becomes anxious and runs off. Donna shows Henry Victor's room, telling him that Victor just needs time. Sometime later, Boyd gathers the townspeople in the diner for a meeting. He asks them to go easy with their questions, and to remember that Tabitha has been through a lot. When Tabitha enters the diner, Dale immediately asks if she really entered the tree. She begins explaining everything from the beginning, but people interrupt her, asking if she contacted anyone, accusing her of not going to the police, questioning why she didn't do more to help. Overwhelmed by the shouting crowd, Tabitha freaks out and storms out of the diner. Dale then says they should all just go to the tree and go home. When Boyd tries to explain that it's dangerous, Dale refuses to listen. At the same time, Julie sneaks into Colony House and steals some weed from Fatima. She's startled by Elgin, who's been on edge lately. He keeps seeing the woman in the kimono. He tells Julie that he started seeing her even when he's awake now, and she's asking for his help. They head down to the basement and start dressing up in old clothes left by people who used to live there. They find a Polaroid camera and begin taking pictures for fun. Meanwhile, Victor is terrified to face his dad. He says his father is expecting a little boy who disappeared 40 years ago. But Sarah tells him maybe his father is just as afraid of not being the dad that little boy remembers. In the meantime, Tabitha returns home. Jade begs her to show him the tree. He doesn't want to enter, just wants to see it. And Tabitha agrees to take him there. Elsewhere, Ellis catches Fatima eating rotten food. Confused, he asks why. She tells him it's the only food she can keep down, and he begins to worry something may be wrong with the baby. Meanwhile, Ethan thanks Henry for bringing his mom back and asks him to help feed the animals at the barn. On the way there, he tells Henry that Victor is his best friend, but sometimes gets so grumpy that he says they can't be friends anymore. Ethan thinks Victor's just scared because everyone he ever loved here died, Unexpectedly, they encounter Victor. Slowly, they walk toward each other in disbelief. The moment is emotional, father and son meeting again after 40 years. They hug tightly, and Victor begins to cry, whispering that he didn't know how to get home. The moment is so heavy even stone would weep. Elsewhere, Tabitha and Jade arrive at the bottle tree. Jade takes down several bottles. Inside each one is a paper with 4 numbers on it. Jade believes they're dates. Then Tabitha shows him the paper with the numbers, 2659. He stares, stunned, and tells her he's also seen the strange kids she's been seeing. Then he explains what they taught was a symbol, was actually a hole in the roof, and those slashes were roots. Suddenly, Dale appears, asking if he just needs to go in. They warn him it's not a good idea, but Dale insists that someone has to try, and says they can thank him later. He enters the tree. At that very moment, Boyd hears the entire town screaming. He rushes to the pool. The second his eyes land on the scene, the horror hits him like a sledgehammer. It feels like the air has been sucked from his lungs. His blood turns to ice. Dale has been teleported into the concrete. Boyd is frozen, helpless, not knowing what to do. He reaches for his gun, ready to end Dale's suffering. But then he sees Dale is already dead. Just like Victor said, the trees are dangerous. You never know where you'll end up. A couple of days later, Henry asks Victor if they can spend some time together. But Victor has to do something very important. When Henry asks to help, Victor says that it's too dangerous, but he can walk with him for a while. Victor wants to get back to the tunnels to get something that can help people. Henry tells him that he just got him back and is not losing him again. So they enter the tunnels together. Victor places toy soldiers to mark his way back. When they get to the chamber, it was supposed to be full, and Jasper was right there. He then tells Henry that they need to go deeper. After some walking in the darkness, they see something between the cracks of the tunnel. As they enter, everything is there. Someone has moved all the stuff deeper into the cave. Jasper is sitting right there, and behind him, one of the creatures is sleeping. Victor quietly puts Jasper in the bag, but Henry freaks out when he finds his wife's scarf. Suddenly, they start waking up, and one of them tells Victor that if he keeps coming here, one of these days he will have to stay. They quickly start running away and manage to get to the trailer where Victor used to hide as a kid. He tells his father that they found Jasper, and it means they can save people now. Victor heard Jasper tell Christopher a story once, and they just have to make it tell it again. Meanwhile, Boyd comes to the clinic to visit Randall, who is still asleep from the strong painkillers. As he prepares to leave, Christy tells him that the ambulance came fully stocked, and there was an ultrasound machine there. Boyd immediately goes to Ellis and Fatima and tells them that Christy has the ultrasound. But Fatima doesn't want to go. Ellis somehow manages to convince her. Meanwhile, Randall wakes up, and Marielle comes to change his bandages. The wound has left some big scars. Moments later, Fatima arrives to check on her baby. But as Christy is checking her belly, she can't see anything. She tells her that she is not pregnant. Elsewhere, Ethan and Tabitha are talking about Tien Chen when suddenly Tabitha hears footsteps upstairs. She goes up to check, and the children appear again. This time they're screaming, "Ankue!" This time they are saying the word differently, like time is running low. Ethan snaps her back, and she takes him to the bar, where Jade is trying to figure out the numbers from the papers they found on the bottle tree. He is sure that somewhere in these numbers is a key, something they need to understand. He tells them that some of the numbers are repeating, which means there's a pattern somewhere. Tabitha then sees the drawing of the weird statues and starts remembering them, even though she has never been to the lake. She asks Jade if he had seen 3 red stones. Jade asks how she knew. She tells him that when she was a little girl, she kept having the same nightmare over and over again. She then realizes that it wasn't just Miranda. Tabitha has also seen this place before she ever arrived. In the meantime, Elgin is hanging up the photos he previously took of all the residents from Colony House. Suddenly, behind Fatima's photo, the kimono woman appears. She then appears behind him, saying that she can save them. She can save all of them. Meanwhile, Victor hasn't left his room for days, trying to make Jasper talk. His father comes in and tells him that the entire house can hear him yelling at that toy. Victor desperately says that Jasper needs to talk. Victor then takes Jasper, saying that Henry doesn't know because he wasn't there. At the same time, Elgin's Polaroid camera starts shooting on its own, like someone is sending him a message. On the photo is the old basement near town. Elgin slowly walks inside and looks around. He opens another door and inside is a closet, but upon opening it, it's completely empty. Just as he turns to leave, he hears knocking from the closet. He pushes it to the side and discovers a hidden door with some kind of room inside. There, he finds a corpse, probably a couple of years old. Suddenly, the kimono woman appears behind him, and Elgin just asks her if this is really where it needs to happen. Meanwhile, Fatima is upset that no one believes her that she's pregnant. She tells Ellis that she's been measuring every single day, and her stomach is getting bigger. and that whatever is inside her is getting stronger. While that was happening, Boyd tells Donna that the ultrasound showed nothing, saying that it's either something there like the worms under his skin, or this place has finally gotten to her. Elsewhere, as Jim and a couple of others are gathering food at the lake, suddenly Ethan, Jade, and Tabitha show up. Then they get to the red stones. Every night, she would start over there and come to hide behind the rocks. Whatever chased her was on the other side of this rock. She would look up, and then she would wake up. Every single time, Jade tells her that she never really had a chance. If she was destined to come to this place since she was a child, then one way or another, she would always come to that tree on the road. Meanwhile, Julie hangs around with Randall, being bored since her entire family is out there. She tells him that she never learned how to drive. She was supposed to, but then she got stuck here. Randall then takes her to the colony house. He takes the van, wanting to teach her how to drive. Suddenly, he starts seeing cicadas all over the vehicle. He panics and stops the van, tries to push away the cicadas, and then storms off into the woods. As Julie tries to follow him, they find themselves at the doorstep of the dungeon. They both start feeling something, like they are drawn to that place. But Randall begs her to leave, and they do. In the meantime, Fatima starts feeling something moving inside her belly, and she screams in pain. She then goes back to the greenhouse to feed whatever is inside her. But the sharp pain starts again. Tilly gets there, trying to comfort her, but a sudden wave of rage consumes her, and she stabs her with the scissors in the chest. Just then, Ellis comes in and sees everything. The scene shifts to Boyd, hiding Fatima inside a wooden hut, deep in the forest. She explains that she felt a sudden anger, and whatever is inside her took control. She breaks down upon remembering that they just left Tilly lying there, and Boyd tells her that they have to let someone find her. And that's exactly how it happens. One of the residents finds her. In the meantime, Julie visits Randall. She thinks they need to go back to that place, believing it might help them with whatever is happening to them. But he's afraid it might make things worse, commenting that nothing here wants to help them, and she should stay away from that place. Back to Boyd. He tells Ellis that if anyone asks, him and Fatima were at his place last night. Trying not to act suspicious, he orders Kenny and Acosta to question everyone in Colony House, while he does the same in town. Donna walks in, immediately blaming it on Sarah. When Boyd explains it wasn't her, Donna says that hiding from those things every night is one thing. This is something people will need to blame someone for. Speaking of Sarah, she's desperately trying to help Victor with Jasper, but he gets upset, yelling at her that it's her fault Jasper doesn't want to speak. He starts slapping himself, falling into one of his panic attacks. Sarah then comes to Tabitha, saying that Victor is in really bad shape and only wants to talk to her. She immediately comes to Victor, but when she tells him that it's just a toy, he starts breaking down. Tabitha manages to calm him down, saying that they will remember together. She asks him where he was the day he heard Jasper talk. He says he was in the basement, but he can't remember where or why. Sarah intervenes, asking him whether it was nice that day. He starts telling them that it was sunny. He was playing hide and seek with his sister. He couldn't find her anywhere. Then he went into the church. He suddenly remembers that he heard Jasper talk with Christopher in the church. They quickly go there, and Victor starts remembering. But it wasn't Jasper. It was the boy in white. He was the one telling secrets to Christopher. He said, the answers to the end are at the beginning. That it started with the children. What the others did to them. The people they loved and trusted. He said the children were born in the dark, and then they were murdered in the dark. But someone who loved them told them a story. The story gave them hope. And when the children lay on the stones, they poured their hope into the roots that made the symbol, and those roots became the tree, the faraway tree. Christopher got angry and wouldn't listen. He wouldn't go to the tree, so Victor told his mother what the boy in white had said, and that's why she left them. Victor then falls into despair, saying that his mom never would have gone if he hadn't told her, and that she died because of him. As he tries to leave, Tabitha grabs his arm. She suddenly feels something her mind can't process. Meanwhile, Elgin steals the transfusion kit from the clinic, then goes to the bathroom. There is a picture with blood in a bag, and Elgin starts drawing his own blood into the jar. Suddenly, another picture pops up from the camera. While all of that was happening, Julie took Ethan and came back to the ruins. She tells him that ever since she woke up from the coma, she can hear people screaming. But when she was here yesterday with Randall, for the first time, everything went quiet. She can feel like something wants her to go in there. And she doesn't know what to do, since it's just a pile of rocks. Everything here reminds her of one of those stories from Ethan's books, so she asks him, if she was one of the characters in those stories, what would she do? Ethan tells her that she's at the threshold. It's always scary, but the hero has to be brave. He takes her hand, saying they'll go together. As they slowly walk toward the ruins, Ethan suddenly disappears, and Julie finds herself inside the dungeon. She can see Randall, Marielle, and herself, tied in chains, screaming. But in reality, she's having a seizure, and Ethan goes to get help. She then sees Martin there. He calls her by name, telling her to throw the rope down the hole. As she does, we see Boyd down there, revealing that this already happened in the past, answering the question of who threw the rope when Boyd was trapped. When she asks who was down there, Martin tells her to leave, immediately. She then enters the cave and hears Victor and Tabitha talking down there, back when the house collapsed and Tabitha fell into the cave. As she walks toward the voices, she hears children screaming the word, "Ankue." In reality, Ethan has brought help, and once they move her from the ruins, she wakes up. In the meantime, Boyd and Ellis are arguing about what to do with Fatima. Suddenly, Donna storms in, saying that people are ready to march on Sarah's house with torches. Boyd admits that it was Fatima. Donna is wildly confused. She can't process that the nicest person here has finally been destroyed by this town. She asks Boyd what will happen once people find out. When Boyd says that they'll understand like they did with Sarah, Donna tells him they didn't understand what Sarah did. They let it go because he told them they had to. But it won't work this time, because people don't believe in him anymore. And that if Boyd doesn't tell people the truth, she will have to. Boyd and Ellis immediately go to get Fatima, wanting to hide her somewhere else. But when they arrive at the hut, she's not there. She's with Elgin. He tells her that Ellis is waiting for her in the basement. He takes her inside, but upon seeing that Ellis is not there, she wants to leave. Elgin tells her she can't leave, because it's the only place the baby will be safe. When Fatima says there is no baby, Elgin tells her that there is. It's just not hers. She pushes him and tries to escape, but he forces her back inside, pulling her all the way to the secret room. He then tells her that she needs to eat. The sooner she eats, the stronger the baby will be, and before she knows it, everyone will get to go home. He pulls out the jar filled with his blood. She doesn't want to drink it at first, but as soon as she gets the first few sips, she can't stop herself anymore. Later that night, Donna walks through the house, remembering when they celebrated Fatima's 1-year anniversary in town. She gets really emotional. At the same time, Boyd tells Ellis about the night he was in the barn with Tien Chen, and how those things made him watch. They said they wanted to break him, so now he wonders if this thing with Fatima and the baby is for the same reason. Suddenly, one of the creatures outside asks if Boyd is doing okay in there. Boyd gets to the window and points a gun at her, telling her to shut her mouth. When she suggests he should kill himself, Ellis quickly pulls him away before he does something stupid. Elsewhere, Sarah starts hearing the voices again, begging them to leave her alone. The next morning, she rushes to the station and informs Boyd about the voices. She tells him they said Fatima didn't leave on her own. They want them to know that she is close, that she's afraid. But they were laughing, because they know he can't find her in time, and they want him to know that he can't save her. Boyd immediately goes to Donna, and she tells him she won't say anything about what Fatima did, because of what she means to the people here. Boyd then tells her everything the voices said to Sarah, and the two of them instantly gather all the town's residents. They inform everyone that Fatima is missing, and that they need to turn over every rock and sweep every corner until they find her. Everyone splits into groups of 2 and starts searching. Elgin offers to pair up with Ellis, and he agrees. Meanwhile, Fatima is getting bigger. Her belly has visibly grown. She unintentionally discovers a handle, and after removing the dirt, she finds a hatch. But no matter how hard she pulls, she can't seem to open it. As we speak, Victor is throwing things out of his room window, shouting that he thought they could help him, but all they ever do is hurt him. He storms off to the faraway tree with an axe and begins hacking at it. Suddenly, the boy in white appears out of nowhere, telling him he can't do that. The tree is important. Victor starts yelling at him, demanding to know why he won't help them. The boy in white replies that he already tried, with Christopher, but he believes they need to learn on their own. It's the only way they'll truly understand. Victor tells him that he's been looking the same all these years, asking him why is he changing now, and he simply replies that everything is changing now, and pleads with him once more not to cut the tree. Back in town, Jade is hanging bottles on a tree, making his own bottle tree. Suddenly, he sees a vision of Christopher holding Jasper, who screams at him so loudly it nearly knocks him off the ladder. Henry approaches and tells Jade that most of the town is out searching for Fatima. He didn't have anyone to pair up with and asks Jade to go with him. As they walk, Henry confesses that he can't recognize Victor anymore. It's like starting all over again with a completely different person. He asks Jade for advice. Jade tells him that he's been desperately trying to fix Victor, but he can't, because Victor isn't broken. He's the product of what this place made him. He's like Tarzan, growing up in the jungle, and Henry is the guy who shows up and makes him feel like an asshole because he doesn't know how to use a fork. Jade lays it out perfectly, giving Henry a lot to think about. Meanwhile, the rest of the town continues searching for Fatima. Donna is with Acosta. Boyd is with Kenny. Boyd tells Kenny he's sorry things between them will never be the same. When Kenny asks why he's bringing it up now, Boyd admits that it's getting worse. The Parkinson's, the clock is ticking, and it just started ticking a little faster. Boyd just wants to know that when he's gone, or too feeble to take care of everyone, Kenny will step up and protect this place. Kenny doesn't want to take Boyd's badge, but tells him, if you're still looking for a deputy, I'll take that one back. And just like that, he makes one old man happy. At the same time, Tabitha and Julie are checking Victor's trailer. Just before they leave, Julie says she doesn't think it was a dream when she passed out at the ruins. It felt like she actually went somewhere. She tells her about the dungeon, how she later heard her and Victor's voices in the cave. And just as she starts describing the children she heard, Tabitha sees one of them standing nearby, motioning for her to follow. They follow the small creature through the woods. It leads them to the basement where Fatima is being held. As Tabitha enters the basement, the kimono woman grabs Fatima and throws her on the bed, holding her mouth shut so she can't scream. Tabitha sees Victor standing there. He quietly says, "This is where it happened. This is where my mother left me and my sister." He blames himself for their deaths. Tabitha hugs him. But in that moment, she gets a strange flashback of Miranda hugging her children. She suddenly pulls away from Victor, whispering that it's impossible. She runs out, overwhelmed, and is hit by another vision, Miranda running toward the tree. One of the creatures rushes toward her. She never made it inside. Somewhere else, Elgin tells Ellis that Fatima is going to be okay. He believes everything is happening for a reason, and that her being taken might actually be a good thing, and that she is maybe right now doing something that could take everyone home. Ellis then goes back to the sheriff's station, telling his father that he thinks Elgin knows where Fatima is, and Fatima, her belly now completely grown, can see something moving underneath. With no time to waste, Boyd gets Sarah and tells her everything that Elgin has said, including that he mentioned that everyone could go home. It sounds so familiar to them. They know how voices here manipulate people into doing something. They meet with Elgin, who was just on his way somewhere, and take him back to Donna's room. Boyd checks his bag and notices that he packed supplies for a couple of days. He then asks him where Fatima is, and being caught in an act, he doesn't even try to lie, and tells them that what's happening is a good thing. He thinks that the woman in the kimono is an angel and is here to help them. He keeps repeating that Fatima's baby is going to save all of them. Sarah tries to explain to him what happened when she was following the instructions of the voices, and how they made her do horrible things. But Elgin is sure this is different, because no one has to die in this scenario. He says that once the baby is born, everyone will get to go home. Boyd then goes to the shed and takes a bunch of tools. He tells everyone that what happens next is on him, then goes to Elgin and starts pulling out a bunch of tools. Suddenly, the Polaroid camera takes a shot, and Elgin tells him it's how she sends him messages. When Boyd picks up the image and sees the house, he gets really upset. Filled with anger, he starts tying Elgin to the chair, telling him that on the picture was his house, the one they were going to when they ran into that stupid tree on the road. Elgin tells him that it's proof that they are all going home. We've never seen Boyd this angry before. He says that Elgin took his family away. He tells him that he's about to hurt him, and he's not going to stop hurting him until he tells him what he needs to know. He then takes Elgin's hand and strikes it with a hammer. He keeps hitting his arm over and over again. Screams can be heard from upstairs. Then Acosta comes there and hears them. She quickly rushes inside the room and starts arguing with Boyd. Meanwhile, Fatima breaks a jar and takes a piece of glass. She slowly starts cutting her belly when the woman in the kimono appears and points the glass towards Fatima's throat. Then she tells her that it's coming, just as Fatima's water broke. In the meantime, Sarah is listening as Boyd desperately tries to explain himself to Acosta, and she sneaks upstairs where Elgin is. We can see that Elgin's hand is completely deformed. Sarah tells him that her heart is breaking for him. He begs Sarah to tell Boyd to stop, but Sarah says that Boyd doesn't understand how far he needs to go to make him talk. She then picks up the screwdriver. As Boyd is still arguing with Acosta, they suddenly hear unimaginable screams coming from upstairs. As they all quickly rush there, they are left in horror upon seeing that Sarah has taken one of Elgin's eyes out, and she tells them exactly where Fatima is. Scene shifts to Victor, saying to his dad that he needs to show him something. He then takes him to the place where he has buried his mom. Right next to her, he buried his sister Eloise, or at least he thinks it was her, because there wasn't much left of her. Back to Tabitha, she explains to Jim what she saw, how she could feel Miranda in that room, that it was not a vision, more like Miranda was there and she tried to tell her something. Jim then goes to Jade and tells him that he is afraid, that things are happening in his family that he doesn't know how to protect them from. He wants Jade to help him. When Tabitha repeats everything to Jade, they go back to Victor's trailer where Tabitha had seen the child who led her to the basement. They enter the trailer and Jade says that if the kids made the tree, then those messages in the bottles, the numbers, must be important. Jim then tries to help, saying that there are 12 numbers from the bottles, but Jade stops him, saying that he tried every mathematical, astronomical, astrological, Babylonian numeric cipher he could imagine. But Jim suddenly asks, aren't there 12 notes in a scale? Jade then approaches him, telling him that he is a genius and that he loves him. He then rushes off while telling Jim to take the violin from his basement. Sometime later, he is at the bar with Tabitha and tries to turn the numbers into the melody. Jim gets there with the violin, and Jade suddenly starts connecting the numbers while he hums the melody. He then turns around while still humming, then says that he never heard this melody before. He just looked at the notes and he could hear the music. Jim then tries to stop him, saying this is not a good idea, because this place is constantly manipulating them, trying to hurt them. But Jade argues, asking how the hell will playing a song hurt them. But Jim points out the music box Boyd has seen and how its music was evil. But Tabitha tells them that they shouldn't play the music in town, just to be safe. Then Tabitha suggests that the message was left on the tree, and they should play it there. Meanwhile, at the diner, Julie and Ethan are eating breakfast, and Julie tells him that when she got unconscious at the ruins, she went somewhere, in the chamber. She tells him that she saw Randall, Mariel, and herself chained to the walls, pointing out that she thinks they were trapped there when they couldn't wake up. And when she left the chamber, she heard Mom's voice talking to a Victor in the tunnels. Ethan then tells her that she is a story walker, someone who can visit chapters of a story that already happened. She then asks him if she could do it again. Maybe she can save Tian Chen. Maybe she can even save Thomas. But Ethan tells her that she can visit the chapters, but she can't change them, because no one can change the story once it's been told. Meantime, Boyd, Ellis, and Kenny are rushing towards the basement, while Kimono Woman is giving birth to Fatima. Suddenly, the hatch begins to open. As they storm into the basement, they hear Fatima screaming, and Kimono Woman pulls out a baby in some weird bloody membrane, then takes it away through the hatch that just opened. Ellis and the others arrive just a couple of seconds too late, and Fatima tells him that she is down there. Boyd tells Ellis to get Fatima back to the colony house, and that he needs to see what is happening. He then enters the suffocating tunnel, trying to follow where it leads. While Fatima tells Ellis that she saw those things that come out at night, she saw what they are. They sacrificed their children because it promised them that they would live forever. Then Boyd sees everything, all the town's monsters gathered together. The membrane starts expanding. It begins to grow. All the monsters are so happy and excited. And Boyd watches in horror, not even believing his own eyes. The night creature Boyd managed to kill, the only one they ever got to hurt, is being reborn, showing us that those things truly are immortal. At the same time, Jade, Jim, and Tabitha get to the bottle tree, and Jade starts playing the music. Suddenly, the children start coming out of the forest, lots of them. One of the kids starts approaching Tabitha, kneels before her, and says, Ankui. But this time, both her and Jade can understand what it means. It means remember. Jade says that they tried to save them. Tabitha starts crying and walks away. When Jim asks for an explanation, Jade just says that they used to sing them lullabies. Jim immediately goes after his wife and demands her to give him an explanation. That's why there is more than one bracelet. She just kept making them. It's because they've been here before, her and Jade. The reason she felt what Miranda felt is because she was Miranda, and Jade was Christopher. They've come back over and over again because they failed the first time. Her and Jade were here at the beginning. They tried to save those children, to set them free, because one of them was their daughter. She then tells Jim that she needs some time alone. He then walks back to the RV, desperately trying to process everything he just heard. He suddenly hears Julie calling for him from the woods. As he sees her running toward him, we can see that Julie is looking completely different. Her hair shorter, different color. She tells Jim to run, that he needs to get to town. She thinks this is where it happens, while trying to tell him that she needs to change the story. Suddenly, the man appears, fully dressed in yellow, saying that Jade sure can play. Jim pushes Julie and tells her to run. The man in yellow tells him that knowledge comes with a cost. The man then grabs him by the throat and pushes him against the RV. The man then says, "Your wife shouldn't have dug that hole, Jim," just as he rips Jim's throat wide open. Julie begins to scream, and that's where the series ends. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video. Thanks for watching.